This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto was raised by evil Itachi. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Given that the boy was in a desert, the heat of the summer day was particularly intense. A shadow from miles away loomed closer as sand swirled in a chilling breeze. He was wearing a long rag that wrapped around his gaunt body, and a sandstorm was coming. He was not fit to be in a desert, much less a sandstorm. He staggered in the sand, slender, bony arms pulling the rags to his chest. In a desperate attempt to find cover before the sandstorm reached him, he raised his lifeless cerulean eyes. The once bright, golden hair had turned tan and nearly brown. His heart sank as he looked across the dunes. He may well die, however, that wasn't a bad alternative in and of itself. He was fed chakra to keep trudging through the sand, though, because the Kyuubi inside of him refused to die in such a disgraceful, dull way. Even though he had only been gone from the Leaf Village for a few months, a home and shelter seemed like a thing of the past. However, given the Kyuubi's frustration at his own cowardice and inability to protect himself from the genin bullies, it was unavoidable. When he was making his way back to his modest hovel after failing a basic bunshin and consequently failing the shinobi qualification exam, he was ambushed by the academy students who had passed. Subconsciously, Kyuubi had forced him to leave the village by healing his wounds against his will. He realized then that there was more inside of him. For someone to heal a broken arm in a single night was not typical, particularly if the bone was protruding at an unnatural angle. This experience also made him aware of the village's lack of desire for him. In a village that detested him, why remain? He was initially held back by his devotion to the elderly man who provided him with housing and funds to purchase ramen. But after more months of cruel treatment from his peers and mocking comments from the villagers, he finally listened to Kyuubi's pleading plea to leave the Leaf Village. A little 10-year-old could do very little more. In actuality, Kyuubi was a very kind demon fox, particularly since Kyuubi trained him to be stronger and kept healing his wounds. Alternatively, it might be Kyuubi's self-interest. They had decided that even if the weird seal on his stomach broke, they would stay together. Kyuubi appeared to have a more tender, fatherly side that came to life when someone hurt him. Naturally, Kyuubi's boundless chakra was also beneficial. It was still challenging. Food for humans was a luxury. He had eaten the bark and leaves of healthy trees until he had staggered into the desert. He had hunted nuts, berries, and other food sources. He couldn't recall the last time he had eaten anything, and they were all gone now. Though it was more likely to have been weeks, it could have been days. He became aware that the sandstorm was intensifying with fatigue. He was hungry and tired, and even the Kyuubi's chakra was insufficient to help him get out of the sandstorm. He detested giving up and the sense of helplessness that came with it. He hated to be hungry. Additionally, he detested the sand that was starting to nip at his tanned legs, which were not covered by the pitiful little rags he referred to as his clothes. Exhausted, he closed his eyes and collapsed to the hot, hard sand below. Burrowing in the sand and hoping it would wash over him was the least he could do. Let's talk about washing. His nose wrinkled in mental disgust. He hadn't taken a bath in weeks. He would have wrinkled his nose if he could have done so physically, but sand would have gotten inside his meticulously built chakra barrier at the last minute. The sandstorm tore away the priceless rags on his back with a painful gust, and he felt the sand beat mercilessly on his back. He pursed his lips to suppress the urge to scream as the sand bit painfully into his now exposed back. In this case, screaming wouldn't do much good. As sand accumulated on top of him, burying him farther and farther into the dune, the searing pain subsided. The boy, exhausted, fell into a fitful sleep, trusting Kyuubi to keep the barrier intact. The length of his sleep was unknown to him. He was lying on his back when he woke up, and the full moon was grinning brightly at him. He was startled to see a small campfire 3 feet away after something popped. What's happening? He turned to his side, facing the flames, and winced. He turned and grasped the blanket as a soft cloth slipped from his body. He had clothes on, and it was soft. He was dressed in shorts that were 2 sizes too big on him and a loose black shirt. His clothing was soft and silky. He had no idea that anything so soft could exist. To keep as much warmth as possible, he eagerly wrapped the blanket around himself in a cocoon. Like fashion. Kyuubi said, wariness enhancing the demon's echo, "Be careful, child. Everything will be fine." Sheesh, he reflected boldly, avariciously, enjoying the meager luxuries bestowed upon him. It was unclear how long this would go on. He had Kyuubi's hearing, so he could hear barely perceptible footsteps coming back to the side. He froze and sat up, alert and ready to run, only to blink in bewilderment. It appeared that the stranger was a boy, not much older than him. He was, if he had to guess, at least 3 or 4 years older than him, and he was attractive. The stranger had a slashed leaf protector on his forehead, and his hair, which glinted in the low light and was almost black in color, rested lightly on the sides of his cheeks. This attractive person had twin scars running down her face. Any information about the stranger's body was concealed by his loose cloak, which whooshed to the soft night breeze. In silence, they assessed each other's advantages and disadvantages, apprehensive of abrupt movements. His stomach rumbled. Quite loudly, he looked up at the stranger with hope as he blushed shyly. The stranger grabbed a tiny packet from a pack he had not previously noticed. This was hurled at him and struck him squarely in the face. As he eagerly opened the packet, he muttered an angry, "Ow." There was dried meat and something that looked like square bread inside. Despite Kyuubi's insistence that he check to see if the food was poisoned, he eagerly started chewing it. It was incredibly delicious. The bread in particular. It wasn't overly sweet and was moist. He closed his eyes to relish the delicious flavor and let out a sigh of joy. "What's your name, kid?" With caution, he opened his eyes. The baritone of the stranger's voice was silky and smooth, almost mesmerizing. "Call me whatever you want. Besides, aren't you supposed to introduce yourself before you request the name of another?" He replied clearly. The childish tone of his own voice made him wince. He was a child, of course, but it was unjust that he sounded so childish. He remained motionless under the stranger's curious stare, as stoic as he could manage. The stranger turned away from him and gazed at the moon. "Uchiha Itachi," he said icily. He muttered, embarrassed and irritated, "I don't remember my real name." "Speak louder, kid." It was a gentle order. Additionally, it had a very ominous do, or die tone. This man was incredible. Feeling incredibly stupid, he repeated, "I don't remember my real name," carefully pronouncing each word. "HN. Was that it? Only, HN." He swallowed an impolite reply. He didn't think the humor would be appreciated by Itachi. Softly, "Uzumaki Naruto," he said. "That was what I was called. But, it's not my real name. It's, company, contrived." Yandaime was a subtle utterance that would be imperceptible to the average shinobi ear. Era. He was perplexed. What connection did the now deceased fourth Hokage, who was so powerful and strong, have to the discussion? Itachi firmly said, "I will call you Naruto." Lose the last name, kid, while leaning against heaps of sand and continuing to stare at the moon. Naruto screamed in exasperation, "Stop calling me a kid. You're not that much older than me in the first place." He was constantly the victim, the one who was tormented and ridiculed. It was simply unfair. HN. He shivered as those perceptive eyes were on him once more. He suspected those eyes were capable of murderous intent. Inquisitive and nervous, Naruto asked, "Nay, why are you here in the desert anyway?" His brain could now analyze the strange situation he found himself in, and his stomach was full. "I was looking for something," Itachi said in a thoughtful, sorrowful tone. "How did you find me anyway?" Naruto asked bluntly, "In the desert. That's a weird place to search." He was buried in sand several feet deep, as far as he knew. That's what Kyuubi told him, anyway. "Your foot. It was an aberration and I pulled it up." Surprise, surprise. He was saved by his foot. As Naruto looked at the blisters and hardened skin, he made the decision to value his foot more. He was able to eat well and be with people who did not yet hate him. He inquired cautiously, "Sue, did you find what you were looking for?" He was beginning to get annoyed by those eyes once more. Could someone have stared for so long without perspiring? Itachi turned to look at the fire almost melancholy, and there was a long pause. "Yes." Oh, Naruto felt uncultured because it was a space filler. Would he ever be as cool as Itachi? He asked himself. He looked at the relaxed elegance and least power that were visible in Itachi's stance. In 4 years, would he still be that way? As he tried to learn more about Itachi, questions poured out of his mouth. What was it? A treasure? A possessed sword? The elixir of life? Like the others, Itachi would most likely disappear after he became aware of him. Itachi gamely retorted, "Something my family was supposed to protect, but abandoned. A legacy of a great man." Itachi's communication with Naruto was greatly appreciated. He hadn't spoken to anyone who wasn't the demon inside of him for far too long. "Who was that? Must have been an important person," Naruto said wistfully as he took in the moon's beauty. Kyuubi's affection for full moons was inherited, unknowingly producing a picture of a waif. like angel that is dimly illuminated by the moon. Another long pause ensued. However, this one was more contemplative, heavier, and almost hesitating. Uncomfortably, Naruto glanced at Itachi's profile. Itachi turned to face Naruto and said, "You," in a final tone. Itachi had a gentle expression that was almost inappropriate for someone of his potential level. "Me? Was he looking for me?" Naruto stood up suddenly and started to pace agitatedly because something was. Hearing that someone had been searching for him was a new experience after years of disregard, resentment, and hatred. Years of living alone had caused pent-up emotions to accumulate, and Kyuubi tried to soothe him with waves of tender chakra. Naruto managed to say, I, before he started to run. He sprinted across the dunes with ease, and the scenery blurred past him, not that there was much to see, since it was all sand. He was unsure of how to react to this kindness or what to do. Cruelty was simpler to identify. In an effort to cope with this new knowledge, he ran. A family had been asked to look after him. Who was that individual? How was it related to the Yondaime? Tears were streaming from his eyes, and his heart ached as questions tore through his mind. How recently had he shed a tear? He was unable to recall. He was being followed by someone. He fell to the sand, shocked that someone could match his Kyuubi. Enhanced speed. As he fought to get to his feet, Naruto spat out sand. Itachi pulled Naruto to his feet and said, "Now that I have finally found you, kid, I will not lose sight of you." Naruto gazed in wonder at him, heedless of his new clothes and the sand that stuck to his face. "You will travel with me." With a nod of compliance, he trailed Itachi back to the camp. Itachi might not grow tired of him or be afraid of the Kyuubi. In the darkest corners of a heart hurt by recollections of rejection and darkness, hope blazed. Naruto whispered, "Nay," and tugged Itachi's cloak on. Itachi paused and waited for Naruto to say something. He stumbled over his words, whispering things he had never thought to say. "Thanks, Oni-chan." Itachi was fantastic. At first, Naruto had been cautious and had accompanied Itachi, ready to run at the first sign of trouble. Itachi was patient and knew a lot of jutsus, but he wasn't particularly kind. Naruto only knew the fundamentals, including replacement jutsu, a very ineffective Bunshin no jutsu, and a few other meaningless elementary skills, because he had only received academy training. During his lonesome journey, he had stayed away from people and fled when confronted, using Kyuubi's incredible speed. Itachi appeared reluctant to leave their peaceful, secluded haven, and they were still in the desert. There is only one way back to the sandy desert from this hidden oasis, which is encircled by imposing, rocky cliffs. He had been made to train here by Itachi. Really, it was difficult. What kind of insane person would train by running 10 kilometers under the scorching desert noon sun? That wasn't even the worst of it. They had to do all of their training during the day, whether it was to strengthen their muscles or learn jutsu. And to top it all off, Itachi magically created a set of 20-kilogram weights and made him wear them during training. The first day had been a terrible experience. He was unable to stand up straight and his movements were slow due to the weights. He couldn't even stand and walk to leave the enclave, so how could he run? Itachi simply brushed aside his cloak to show twice as many weights on his own body as Naruto had grumbled about. He immediately stopped talking. With all those weights, it's no surprise that the man was a little short for his age. Stunted, or something. Not daring to laugh in front of Itachi, he snickered in his head. He looked bony and starved, but it seemed like Itachi wanted him to put on some muscle, even though he didn't like the way he looked, as evidenced by the water's reflections. It would have been preferable to train more gradually over a few years as opposed to as intensively as he did. For example, 5 kilograms as opposed to 20. That thought was squelched by a look at Itachi. Itachi was staring at him intently, as though he could sense that Naruto was thinking about rebellion. Itachi calmly gave the order, "Stop stalling and run, Naruto," and turned to jog in the direction of the dunes. Naruto stumbled and fell on his face as he attempted to move forward. Angrily, he punched the floor. "Will you assist me, Kyuubi?" Plaintively, he asked. "It would be simple with Kyuubi's assistance." "Kit, it wouldn't be beneficial for me to help you." The response had a definitive tone, and Kyuubi disregarded his subsequent entreaties. He struggled to his feet and collapsed, resigned. He crawled to the side of the cliff and pressed his calloused hands against the rock, swearing to himself. He lifted his arms slowly, drawing his body up until he was barely standing. He laughed aloud, and grinned triumphantly. Itachi asked in an irritated tone, "What are you doing?" His face winced and vaulted. Once more, he had to crawl up. He was dragged away from the wall by a hand that grabbed the back of his shirt, then let him go. It will not do for you to rely on the wall. Use your own muscles. It was some advice, and Naruto grudgingly followed it. He pulled his body slowly, painfully, upright. If he didn't know any better, he would assume that Itachi's tone was amused. Good. Now if you manage a jogging pace, I will give you more bread. Still, food. The memory of that bread energized him, and he fought to walk with more vitality. Well, if you say it that way then, let's train on, he said, beaming at Itachi. Naruto was second. Guessing his declaration a few hours later, they had spent hours jogging. Itachi had walked to keep up with Naruto's pace. It was really offensive. Naruto eagerly drank water from the pool as soon as they arrived back at the oasis. The coolness of the water soothed his dry throat. Naruto, come here, Itachi called out. He approached Itachi instinctively, his head tilted sideways in innocent inquiry. He ducked quickly, barely avoiding the fist. What the hell, Oni-chan? Snapped Naruto, his fist raised in rage. Naruto leapt away, deftly avoiding the kick at the side of his stomach. Itachi appeared in front of Naruto and used his finger to flick him away, seemingly flowing like the wind. Naruto landed with a thud on his butt after twisting his body to soften the landing while he was in the air. He muttered angrily, Itai, all of this happened so quickly, and he couldn't handle this new, crueler Itachi. Itachi commanded, get up, as he approached Naruto. Yada, was Naruto's defiant response. I don't want to travel with you if you plan on using me as a toy to beat up. Naruto. I am training you to be stronger. It was the most profound explanation he would ever receive. Itachi reached out to help him stand again. He cautiously took the offered hand after glancing up at Itachi. Itachi stepped back, casually brushing away the clinging sand. I'm coming, Itachi said, charging at Naruto with his arm out to strike. As he skillfully deflected the swift blows, Naruto ducked and looked for a gap. Avoiding the punches was getting old, and Itachi left no space at all. Something had to come to mind, but what? He leaned down to hurl sand at Itachi's eyes after spotting the sand and avoiding a roundhouse kick. Itachi smiled and jumped away gracefully. His smile was unsettling. That smile had a wrongness to it. As though it wasn't supposed to be there. Itachi's lack of smiles was a little depressing. He must have had a difficult and depressing life as well. Good job, Naruto. You didn't even think of your weights. In exchange for the infrequent praise, he dismissed his worries about Itachi. Yoshi! Shouted Naruto joyfully. This individual evoked emotions in him that he was unaware he possessed, such as joy, familial love, and loyalty. Itachi was rapidly turning into a valuable asset to guard. Itachi looked up at the sky, and his eyes grew gloomy. Naruto, we will not have a fire tonight. Why don't you take a bath? You reek of an unpleasant stench, Itachi whispered softly. Itachi seemed to be thinking deeply, as though recalling a past he did not particularly enjoy. As long as he got some of that bread, Naruto nodded enthusiastically. He joyfully whooped as he threw off his clothes and dove into the water to take a bath. In fact, it was his first bath in a long time, and all of a sudden the filth on his skin and the strange objects in his hair were intolerable. When he came out, he waved to Itachi and threw back his head. Oi, Oni-chan, do you have any soap? Something was thrown at his face once more, but this time he managed to catch it before it hit his nose. His reflexes were improving as he gazed at his hand in wonder. Naruto ignored the swirl of brown water surrounding him and continued washing himself while whistling out of tune. Fortunately, there was good circulation in this pool, and soon the water around him was clear. He scrubbed himself raw, then climbed out of the pool and wrapped a towel Itachi had laid on a nearby rock around his waist. It felt almost divine that he was clean. He was thrilled to see that his hair was blonde once more when he looked in the mirror. Is Itachi okay, in your opinion, Kyuubi? The Kyuubi's response caused his eyes to flash crimson red. He has a darkness inside of him that is too great to ignore, so be careful, Kit. He appears to be lonely and off. Kyuubi, what was the word again? When someone is extremely high or something. Kyuubi answered in a humorous tone. On a pedestal, Kit. You should be more fluent in your native tongue. Ehehe. Kyuubi's taunting of him was more than a little flustering. Naruto's mind returned to Itachi's sullen demeanor. Nay, Kyuubi. I believe I would like to see more smiles from Oni-chan. Kyuubi remained silent. Due to, he doesn't seem to have anyone, but I have you to comfort and support me. Naruto pondered glumly, almost feeling sorry for Itachi. Kit, your heart never ceases to astound me. Deserving of the title, my own. Naruto grinned longingly. It's strange that I'm receiving so many compliments today. Naruto hardened his resolve and told Kyuubi, "I want to stay by your side, Kyuubi. I wish to increase his smile." Inside his prison, Kyuubi stirred, and Naruto started to be surrounded by chakra. Saying that is not something to do lightly. Relationships are challenging, and he might turn on you. Nevertheless, I'd like to. The first person who truly cared about me was him. Naruto's eyes grew averted as he took in the sunset's stunning orange-red tones. Then, Kit, do what you will. Many thanks, Kyuubi, Atusan. Chakra erupted in reaction. I'm grateful. Weeks went by in the same manner. The mornings were calm and relaxed. Naruto was more than happy with Itachi's tardiness and dislike of early mornings. On the other hand, he liked to watch the sunrise. It was worth getting up early for the first few hours when the sun would gradually light the desert with its lovely fire. They'd eat a light brunch once Itachi stirred. Itachi appeared to have an abundance of dried meat and bread. In fact, it was kind of amazing. It was an adventure for another time, but Naruto was still interested in seeing what else was in that enigmatic pack that materialized whenever Itachi needed something. To increase their strength and endurance, they would then run across the desert for about 25 kilometers in the afternoon. Although it was difficult for him to do so, Naruto was now able to keep up with Itachi. The most entertaining part came immediately after the sprint. During their sparring sessions, Itachi would also teach him jutsus. It was mind-blowing how much he had learned in the last few months. Itachi taught Naruto how to control the chakra after he discovered that he lacked the necessary skills. It was enjoyable and a little confusing to walk along the cliffside, but it greatly improved his chakra control. It was incredible to dance on the water. Even though he couldn't believe it was possible, it was. But nothing compared to sparring with Itachi on the water. The idea of being able to fight on the water with that much control in a matter of weeks was thrilling. He wanted to know more. But during these 2 weeks, Itachi never smiled again. Itachi's speculative looks gave him a sense of pride, but it was a sad one. Itachi's hand stroking his hair, his shoulder pat, and his demand that Naruto get stronger were all signs of affection. However, there was a weight to Itachi's face. Naruto tried to reach the elusive darkness in Itachi. Itachi will be able to smile with ease one day, Naruto assured himself. But today, as he dodged Itachi's kick, he reasoned that simply being with Itachi was sufficient. As the other leg approached him, Naruto suppressed a moan. Unconsciously closing his eyes, he prepared himself for the impact, realizing that he wouldn't be able to move fast enough to avoid this one. The seconds passed. He opened his eyes hesitantly and looked at Itachi. Amused, Itachi sat on a rock a few feet away. Playfully resentful of Itachi for deceiving him once more, Naruto sighed as he moved past him to sit on another rock. As they sat there thinking, neither of them said anything. Naruto. Startled, he looked up. Itachi hardly ever started a conversation. One of those cool, stoic people was Itachi. Be careful, Itachi warned, stepping up suddenly. Exclaimed Naruto, leaping to his feet in astonishment. Do not think as you kill. Do not let emotions kid your mind. You must survive. Do you understand? Itachi issued an urgent warning. Naruto gazed up at him, perplexed. What's happening? With the grace of a coiled panther, Itachi dodged a shower of kunai as he ran toward him. Startled, Naruto leapt away. Intruders were present. 4. All 5 of them were rapidly approaching and within visual range. He gave Itachi a sympathetic glance. He would murder, for Itachi. So he did. With both kunais in his hands, he soared in their direction. He didn't want his hands to get dirty from Itachi. Naruto chose to take on the darkness of killing himself, despite his suspicion that Itachi had killed numerous times in the past. Naruto thought gloomily, I will do this from now on. To keep him alive. The 5 enemies formed a loose circle around him. Naruto swooped down at them, smirking at their openings, and attacked each one of them in their vital points. It was incredibly simple to eliminate, and all 5 of the intruders were dead in a matter of seconds. He looked up at Itachi, his face dripping blood. Itachi looked back with a kind of tenderness, let's go. Then they vanished. Naruto was upset. No, not only was there anger, but there was also disappointment and a strong sense of incredulity. What more could Itachi have done? This was it. Itachi dropped him off here the one time he chose to unwind and let Itachi work the night shift. And it infuriated him. He didn't understand why Itachi would act in that way. For the previous 2.5 years, they had been inseparable. Naruto had promised that he would be the one to eliminate all of their obnoxious pursuers during that time. His entire focus had been on making Itachi smile effortlessly. Naruto had achieved some success, but it wasn't exactly what he had anticipated. Ironically, instead of giving Naruto everything he had been aiming for, Itachi simply smiled for him. Nevertheless, it had been a beginning, and now that Itachi was gone, he had nothing. More like he vaguely recalled that Itachi had dropped him off in front of the gates of a town he hated with a letter introducing him to the Hokage. He clenched his fist around the scroll. He didn't feel deceived by Itachi for some odd reason. The knowledge that Itachi would become a victim of the darkness and his own incapacity to intervene to save Itachi were the main sources of his rage. Naruto was aware of Itachi's full range of abilities, particularly since he would become a victim of them himself during their numerous cruel training sessions. He was aware that once Itachi unleashed his powers on the unwary people, they would be helpless since the only person who could defeat Itachi, himself, would not stand up for them. Naruto would not, under any circumstances, oppose Itachi, even if Itachi performed insane feats like this. Naruto vowed to instill common sense in Itachi's mind. He turned quickly and stopped when something dropped from his pocket. He was the recipient of a letter from Itachi. He read the contents of the scroll while muttering to himself. "Introduce yourself to the Hokage, ha ha." Naruto wasn't laughing at the biggest joke Itachi could have pulled. Itachi must have been joking when he said, "Enroll in the Ninja Academy and train to become a shinobi." Naruto wagered the scars on his cheeks that he would most likely have no trouble killing the Junins in this pitiful town. What could he learn from this, let's be peaceful, town full of sissies? Now, this was intriguing. Learn their secret techniques. With some sort of power available, he should be able to maintain the tranquility of a small town. As Naruto considered the skills he might pick up, his eyes glowed. A shine that would make many adversaries nervous. If they lived at all, which was doubtful. "And once you have gained enough power to overpass me, join me once again, if you can find me." He sighed. Among the most elusive individuals he knew was Itachi. You couldn't find Itachi if he didn't want to be found. Fortunately, Kyuubi had the most sensitive olfactory organs because without them, even Naruto couldn't locate him. He wanted to turn away from the letter and head back toward the road. The town he had abandoned didn't want to hold him down. Other than that damned little letter, there was no reason to. Well. He paused, caught between the instinct to follow Itachi's instructions and the need to locate Itachi. "Kid, you might want to pay attention to the letter." Naruto froze, silently pondering Kyuubi's counsel. "You can learn a lot here. They were powerful enough to seal me." Ignoring the gate patroller's curious looks, Naruto took a seat on the dirt road. Itachi would likely be upset that he disregarded orders if he left now. In spite of this, he felt he could still win Itachi over. Therefore, it was a moot point. Itachi and Kyuubi did, however, have a good argument. There were methods that begged to be perfected. Naruto leapt to his feet in response. As soon as he could, he would learn the methods and advance in the ranks. That would draw too much attention, though. He scowled, his brows furrowed. There would be a lot of fuss and a ton of anbu to annoy him if he attracted too much attention. He began to pace agitatedly. Oh, he had a triumphant thought. He would pretend to be a fool and steal methods. A dumb fool who was incapable of doing anything right would disarm them more readily than anything else. It wasn't a pleasant sight to witness, but Naruto grinned as he walked past the guards and flashed his pass. Uzumaki Naruto, the Hokage, read the letter carefully and muttered into his mind. Naruto made himself twitch. He pretended to look anxiously at the floor as he calculated the strengths of the shinobi sitting next to the Hokage, which would be abnormal for a 12-year-old to not fidget under the steady gaze of an intimidating-looking old man. The way they concealed their chakra gave the impression that they were strong, but they would be easily defeated. This must be worth it, he sighed in his mind. So, you were taken in by this elderly couple, who passed away a few weeks ago, leaving you this letter to bring to me, the Hokage said, reflectively scratching his beard. Oh no, Oni-chan had a wild story in mind. Naruto was puzzled. Before giving the letter to the Hokage, he ought to have read it, but it was already too late. Naruto brought tears to his eyes in the hopes that he would appear credible. I don't understand why they had to die, he replied, sniffing, his voice quivering as he continued, glaring at the Hokage from beneath his eyelids. I didn't know where else to go, he said. With a sigh, the Hokage approached him and knelt beside him. Though cautious, Naruto kept up his act, ready to bury a kunai in the Hokage's neck if necessary. As the Hokage began to pat him on the back, he made himself scream. Naruto sniffed and whimpered, I really miss them, they were like my Suro. With courtesy, the Hokage completed, surrogate parents? Naruto gave as adorable a nod as he could. What a sucker this guy was. Yar, mumbled the Hokage. It is a relief to see you doing well. I was concerned when I learned of your disappearance a few years ago. Did they treat you well? Yeah, they did, Naruto replied, biting his bottom lip to act as though he remembered. He forced himself to cry aloud now and awkwardly brushed away the twin streams of tears streaming down his face. They found me a couple years ago, wandering around, and they took me in because they didn't have children. I really loved them. The patting went on. Your apartment has been left vacant for your use. You will have to continue the academy and I will arrange for your living costs, the Hokage said with a kind pat on his back. Naruto stopped crying and sniffed. Really? He asked with a tone of innocence, acting on an urge he couldn't resist. Possibly from a different stream of thought. Hotly, Naruto jumped into the Hokage's arms and embraced him, declaring, then someday, I want to be Hokage just like you. The arms wrapped around him and gave him a light squeeze. Naruto grinned to himself. It was too simple. Yar. Entering the town was surprisingly simple. This place was full of suckers. Fortunately, they all treated him like the orphan he was, seemingly forgetting that he was the Kyuubi's vessel. He actually enjoyed being left alone and didn't mind at all, but it wasn't part of the role he had to play. Playing practical jokes was entertaining. He cheerfully played as many practical jokes as he could, and the Hokage took a liking to him and shielded him from the townspeople's retaliation. The people here were so naive, but Itachi would never let any pranks work. It preserved his artistic abilities as well. He would not be permitted to waste chakra to produce the sexy.no jutsu in Itachi's presence, but he was bored, and bored people like him are never good. Additionally, he was able to steal the secret scrolls thanks to his jutsu, and boy, did they contain some juicy techniques. He gladly skipped school classes whenever possible because he also had to play the role of dead last. Forcing himself to fail the tests was worth the frustration of upsetting Iruka-sensei. It was challenging to fail the tests because they were all so simple and it literally took a grade A idiot to fail them. Catching up on a childhood he never truly experienced made life enjoyable. He didn't hold it against Itachi for being the serious, unplaying person he was, but traveling with Itachi made him mature. Additionally, he would sharpen his acting abilities by remaining in the village, and since he would be hunted down if he left, he would need to perfect the art of deceiving the enemy. But his classmates were strange. This Sasuke guy piqued the interest of every girl. The poor guy was constantly surrounded by girls, so he never had a chance to check him out. It seemed that estrogen was a terrible force, and even when he was acting foolish, Naruto was wise enough to stay out of it. The Dog Clan, Bug Clan, Shadow Clan, and who knows what other strange clans existed were among the many strange clans. Iruka-sensei was the only sane person in the entire school, and getting a raise from him was a lot of fun. Ironically, Iruka-sensei's constant pursuit of himself when he skipped class evoked sentiments of familial attachment. Naruto reluctantly showed respect for the weaker Chunin, and that kind of perseverance was admirable. Which was significant because it was difficult to gain his respect. Finally, Naruto had to exercise all of his self-control to barely pass the exam on the eagerly anticipated day of the Academy Finals. He was assigned to Team 7 because he couldn't ruin the expectations he had worked so hard to establish. He hadn't bothered to recall his teammates' names. His time was not worth them. Additionally, he disregarded the silver-haired Junin who served as their teacher. He only remembered that they were to meet at some training ground at dawn or some such time. It didn't matter to him. The good old days had been enjoyable, but now they were becoming monotonous and repetitive. He knew he had to wait, but he wanted to find Itachi now. He walked to the meeting spot 4 hours late, in a foul mood, and it was more than a little challenging. He had been in the town for 6 months now, and he had mastered the majority of the secret jutsus that weren't bloodline limit techniques from the scrolls. He didn't think he would be interested in learning anything else. He learned Rasengan, a specialized Yondaime jutsu, Kage Bunshin no jutsu, and numerous other jutsus whose names he could hardly recall, along with the seal. When he discovered the method in the scroll, he had opened Kyuubi, but Kyuubi had chosen to remain inside his body. He didn't mind because Kyuubi was a father figure, but it was reassuring to know that despite being sealed for 13 years, the Kyuubi had no ill will toward him. Since long-term cohabitation would lead to Kyuubi's absorption into Naruto, it seemed as though Kyuubi desired that outcome. The thought was unsettling and even tragic. Naruto didn't want that to occur, but he was powerless to stop Kyuubi from leaving if that was his wish. His female teammate yelled angrily, "You're late," as Naruto walked into the room. Taking in the lovely features of her girlish face, he looked back at her steadily and brushed it aside. How else could Naruto have mastered the seductive no jutsu? He had seen more luscious babes than she had. He stepped back in surprise, looking over at his other silent teammate. Itachi-chan. No, who is this younger guy? Naruto gave it some serious thought. Itachi's stoic memory surfaced, further dampening his mood. He was missing him. He wanted to be with him again after enduring 6 long months apart. Itachi-chan with hesitation. Naruto pointed to the Itachi impersonator and said, "Nay, who is he?" "He's Uchiha Sasuke," the girl said dreamily in response. Uchiha. Putting 2 and 2 together wasn't too hard. I wonder why Itachi-chan never told me about his family. That's his younger brother, huh? Oh well. When the tardy teacher finally showed up, a gust of wind discouraged further conversation. In contrast to the quick glance he had given his instructor during their initial encounter, Naruto made the effort to look at him. The other eye was covered by the forehead protector, and his instructor's eye was slack. A tiny pocket-sized book protruded from his vest, and silver hair stood out toward the sky. When Naruto realized what the book was, he yelled, "Pervert!" His sensei just gave him a subdued look of surprise. Turning away, Naruto looked at the trees while shyly scratching the back of his head. This sensei would irritate you. "Oi," said the sensei calmly. He pointed to Sasuke and said, "Let's introduce ourselves now. Your name, your goals, your dreams, etc. You start." With a somber expression on his face and a gloomy tone in his voice, Sasuke said, "My name is Uchiha Sasuke. My goal is to kill a certain man. Dreams, I have none." Naruto cast a curious glance at Sasuke. "Sue, isn't he an Avengers? Dull." She looked at Sasuke as she said, "My name is Haruno Sakura. My goal is..." Naruto refrained from snorting. "My dream is..." was another moony-eyed, infatuated look directed at Sasuke. Naruto felt repulsed. The girl would cause problems. The sensei pointed at him and said, "How about you, Gaki?" In a desperate attempt to find something to say, Naruto trailed off, My name is Uzumaki Naruto. My dream is to be the Hokage. My goal is find someone. That's all you need to know." The sensei shrugged and looked at him steadily, as though he was looking for something that was not spoken. He appeared content with what he observed. "My name is Hitaki Kakashi. My goal is none of your business. My dream is also none of your business." Naruto began to perspire. This man was strange. Kakashi pulled 2 bells out of his pocket and held them up before their eyes. He halted his speech and pulled out the perverted book. "This is a test. If you fail, you will return to the academy for a year. You have until noon to get the bells, which is 2 hours. Only 9 genin will be able to graduate. You can start now." They didn't move. The exam didn't matter to Naruto. In any case, the town had little more to teach him. All he wanted was a reason to go and look for Itachi. In private, he pondered whether 6 months was long enough for Itachi. He made the decision to quit playing the fool. Naruto didn't think Itachi would have liked him playing at his foolishness if he had been present. Sensing Kakashi-sensei's perceptive eyes, he turned his back obstinately and folded his arms. He did not care about passing. "Sasuke, you can't be an Avenger if you are too scared to attack me. Come at me with killing intent, or you'll fail and never catch that man," chided Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke hurried toward Kakashi-sensei, but Naruto moved aside. He smiled to himself as Kakashi quickly disarmed Sasuke and had him in a lethal grip. The shadow of the clone that had followed Sasuke had gone unnoticed by any of them, and they all rejoiced joyfully as he clutched the 2 bells that the clone had brought back. Surprised, Kakashi-sensei looked up. Telling Kakashi-sensei, "This is boring," Naruto calmly threw the bells back. With an almost courteous tone, Kakashi asked, "Uzumaki Naruto was your name, right?" Naruto nodded cautiously. "What's it to you? You've had an interesting past, have you not?" Naruto pulled out a kunai and glared at Kakashi. "As I said before, what's it to you? I wonder what you have learned surviving on your own. Your academy results were interesting." Naruto said, "HMPH," and turned to leave for his accommodations. 3 kunais were flying toward Naruto's head, and he ducked. He grabbed the 3 kunais that were just flying at Kakashi's head and turned to throw the 6 he already had in his hand toward him with grace. "As I thought," the obnoxious, all-knowing voice said. "You've had training. Who trained you?" With a cool response, Naruto said, "None of your business." Kakashi turned back to the others after giving Naruto a steady look. Kakashi said, "Sakura, Sasuke, you pass." Thanked Naruto, and then vanished. Naruto didn't hesitate to follow him. Kakashi wanted answers because he knew something. As he stopped another attack, Naruto thought, Kakashi-sensei is stubborn. From the afternoon into the early evening, Their small battle had been moving forward steadily. The sun threw its darkening rays on the two determined fighters as it started to set. The surrounding cliffs served as the battlefield, a location that could be readily damaged without regard to cost. As their battle tore through the bleak landscape, jutting cliffs stood out in the waning light. Naruto bit out, "What do you know?" as he viciously punched Kakashi's left arm. As Kakashi nearly slammed a kunai into his right arm, he sidestepped a barrage of blows and flipped his body back. Naruto could put an end to this fight pretty quickly, but that wouldn't address all of the questions that were racing through his head. What is known about the Uchiha family by Kakashi-sensei? Why does he pretend to understand what is happening? What is it that he knows? He could employ the method he had perfected with Itachi, but he didn't want to use it on Kakashi because it would require Kyuubi's chakra. Furthermore, he couldn't simply murder his sensei because, in theory, Kakashi was his teacher. After successfully blocking one of Naruto's kunai, Kakashi prodded, "What do you want to know?" Kakashi's leg was punctured by the other one. As he deftly dodged Kakashi's blows, he narrowed his eyes. What if Naruto was putting forth effort in vain and Kakashi knew nothing? As he struck out more violently, Naruto's eyes blazed with rage. As the battle grew more intense, Naruto demanded, "Why is Uchiha Sasuke an Avenger? And why do you look at me so speculatively?" It wasn't as difficult, but it was nearly as thrilling as his practice sessions with Itachi. To give Kakashi breathing room, he reduced the frequency of his attacks. "Why do you ask, Naruto-kun?" was the surprisingly kind response. In response, Naruto kicked Kakashi into the air in a furious manner. He twisted to kick his sensei with enough force to slam it into the ground after jumping after Kakashi. Naruto whipped out a kunai and mistakenly pushed aside his sensei's forehead protector to place it under Kakashi's chin. He stopped. In a pained whisper, Naruto asked, "Why do you have the Sharingan, Oni-chan?" Kakashi remained silent and gazed thoughtfully into his eyes. "You're a prodigy, Naruto-kun. No genin has been able to damage me with taijutsu as you have." Feeling as though he had passed some strange test, Naruto cautiously got to his feet and withdrew the kunai. Naruto remarked coolly, "HMPH. Obviously you won't tell me anything," upset that Kakashi could irritate him so much. He thought sadly that Oni-chan would be disappointed if he saw how emotional I was. He turned to go back to his accommodations because he was exhausted and had made enough mistakes for the day. Naruto was stopped in his tracks by a hand that slithered around his wrist. His sarcasm barely concealed his annoyance as he turned to Kakashi. "Yes, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto's harsh tone of voice caused Kakashi's eyes to widen slightly before they reverted to their typical lethargic look. "Why do you know of the Sharingan?" would have been a frightening question, but Naruto was unaffected. "None of your business," he shrugged. Kakashi said in a coolly amused tone, "Then I suppose Uchiha Sasuke is none of your business either, or why I wanted to test you." In an attempt to control his anger, Naruto mentally tallied the number of people he had murdered over the previous 2.5 years. When Kakashi started talking again, he was able to pass the 80. "Naruto-kun?" Kakashi asked in a derisive tone that was only used for misbehaving kids. Naruto just kept counting while raising his eyebrows. There was a barely perceptible tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Naruto clenched his jaw. It was a bothersome sound that was reverberating in his mind due to his exceptional hearing. Press. Tap, 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 tap. Naruto threw his arms in the air and yelled, "All right, sheesh." Kakashi said lightly, "Now then, Sharingan." Naruto looked at Kakashi as he responded, "Everyone knows that the Uchiha have the Sharingan. I was just wondering why you had one. It must strain your body, sensei, since you weren't born with one. At the same time, why doesn't Sasuke have one? He seems kinda old to not have the Sharingan mastered. Isn't he around my age? And another thing is, he's going to be my teammate, right? He only lives as an Avenger. What does he need to avenge? It will be irritating. That girl is also going to be a liability. Can't I change teams or anything? This whole thing is irritating, especially you, sensei." He took care to keep his knowledge of his older brother in the dark. He had a weird instinct that it might not be acceptable. As Kakashi complied and responded to his inquiries, Naruto tried not to show his surprise. Maybe it was his prize for defeating Kakashi. There was a massacre a couple years ago. There are only 2 Uchiha clan members alive, Sasuke and his elder brother Itachi. So his guess was correct. Itachi's blood brother was Sasuke. Then why did Itachi think Sasuke wasn't deserving? Itachi trained himself, so why didn't he train Sasuke? There was confusion, and it was unclear what the person he called Oni-chan was trying to accomplish. Maybe Itachi was looking for a challenge. As his sensei went on, Naruto returned his focus to Kakashi. As to why Sasuke doesn't have the Sharingan yet, only he would know, I suppose. You missed out on a lot while you were gone. Living with the elderly couple. And then Kakashi gave a wink. As to changing teams, you can't. That's too bad, and now that I know you are talented, don't even try to hide it anymore. I would like to train with you and make you even stronger. He paused to look at Naruto. That is, if it is even possible. Naruto scowled. There was a good brain on this pervert sensei. It was unfortunate that he might eventually have to kill him. It was difficult to find intelligent people. Naruto said, all right, turning to face the now bright moon. Thanks, sensei. I suppose I'll try not to kill them. Naruto gave in to the pressure of a hand patting his shoulder. He prepared himself to be patient in the hopes that he could learn something from this pervert. In addition to Itachi, Naruto needed to learn more about his own murky past. Where better to discover the truth than where it all started? Kakashi grinned and walked away, saying, well, see you tomorrow, Naruto-kun, at 10 in the morning, don't come late. Naruto muttered to himself, as if you won't come late, as he made his way to his apartment. The possibilities for tomorrow were intriguing. He would agitate Sasuke and train him to be deserving of the Uchiha name in order to keep himself busy for the time being. He would do anything for his Oni-chan because he was certain Itachi would want that. It was a bothersome bird. Cheap. It sang, sheep. Naruto let out a moan. Maybe he was suffering from this easy life. He gently punched his pillow in an effort to shape it into his head. With a sigh, he closed his eyes and buried his head in the hollow he had made. Sheep, 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 sheep. The bird was disgustingly happy. He wanted to scream. Compared to Kakashi's tapping from yesterday, this was more tortuous. He looked at the alarm clock blearily. The time was 9:30 a.m. He vaguely remembered that there was an event scheduled for the morning. However, he was unable to recall for the life of him. Oh well. Naruto yawned and reasoned that it must be inconsequential. He got out of bed slowly and proceeded to the bathroom to take a bath. He turned the water's knobs to measure the temperature and waited for the tub to fill. Nice, long, uninterrupted bath times were one luxury he refused to waste. He brushed his teeth and waited. Naruto detested morning breath and the disgusting sensation of a dry, phlegm-filled mouth in the morning. He sighed in satisfaction as he slowly submerged himself in the steaming water after the bath was ready. He closed his eyes and allowed his mind to wander to the events of the previous day. Masaka, Uchiha Sasuke. Is the Uchiha clan massacre connected to the darkness in Itachi? Given the likelihood, Naruto considered the ramifications. Being aware of Itachi's personality and their initial exchange of words, Itachi most likely killed the other members of his family because they had neglected their responsibilities. Nevertheless, he couldn't be seeing anything else. He spared Sasuke, but why? Love within the family? Kid, maybe you can ask him when you next see him. Naruto grinned a little. Oto-san. The water's surface rippled with gentle waves of dazzling red chakra. Why do you refuse to make your own body? I do not wish for you to vanish. I don't want that to happen, but I can feel you blending into me. Kid. It's unavoidable. You can be free, though. The seal has vanished. Why do you have to remain in me and be stubborn? I do not wish for you to be gone forever. Naruto looked at his own reflection and furrowed his brows in agony. He looked back at him with sad, longing, clear blue eyes. Inside his reflection, there were red shadows. It was the seal's nature, and I'm okay with it. As long as you are alive, I will remain with you. Demo. I'm not going to be able to talk to you or ask for advice. Your sensible ideas would vanish. Do not touch my body. Kyubi Otou-san. Naruto resisted the urge to cry as grief overcame him. It was such a lovely, heartbreaking loss. You will die if I go. My chakra is essential to your body. I'd rather not be seen. Then we'll figure it out. My worthy kid, it's too late. Something must be there. I was content. Oto-san, please. It would be over in a few more weeks, at most. It's harder to tell my thoughts apart from yours. I am adopting your thoughts. He let his tears fall freely, cascading down his cheeks and onto the hot bathwater with a gentle hiss. Don't leave, please. Kid, it might be the last time I talk to you. Even though you are the son of the person who sealed me, know that I still love you as my son in human terms. Naruto shuddered. They had never discussed the event in which Kyubi was sealed before. The one who sealed you, his son, Oto-san, what are you talking about? There was no response, and Naruto lost himself in bewilderment and sorrow. There was nothing he could do to stop Kyuubi, the one presence that had never abandoned him, from being absorbed. Naruto looked glumly at the tiles and lifted his head to catch his breath. More than ever, he felt isolated. "Oni-chan! You're where?" The female teammate of Naruto yelled. "You're late," as he walked into the clearing at the bright and early hour of noon. "I am?" Naruto said, genuinely taken aback. He had walked inadvertently to the team meeting, completely forgetting about it. Sasuke just gave him a quick glance before ignoring him. Naruto smiled sarcastically. The younger brother appeared to be a cocky jerk. "Naruto-kun, his sensei's song voice said as Kakashi walked in. "You were late, weren't you?" Despite a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, he responded crossly, "How about you, Kakashi-sensei? You were later than I was." Though impossible, this sensei was amusing in a morbid way. Kakashi blithely disregarded Naruto's remark and carried on talking. "Today we will train." Kakashi distributed weights to each of them after grabbing them from an odd subspace pocket. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me. Put these on your arms and legs, it's time for cross-training," exclaimed Kakashi with delight. Naruto let out a moan. It was training in elementary school again. He put on the weights over the ones he was wearing, gamely. As a recollection of his time spent with Itachi, Naruto never considered removing the weights he had previously worn. "Follow me," was Kakashi's upbeat command. His sensei started to jog in the direction of the woods. Naruto ran alongside his sensei with ease. Eager to add some excitement to the training, Naruto said, "Nei sensei, why don't we race?" In a serious response, Kakashi shook his head and said, "You shouldn't overdo it, Naruto-kun. Especially since you were carrying twice the normal weight and you aren't sufficiently recovered from yesterday's exercise." Naruto grinned. "So, I guess it wore you out, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi just arched an eyebrow and took off running. Naruto purposefully thought out loud, "Then I'll torture Sasuke-kun," as he followed his lagging teammates back. He smiled mischievously at Itachi's younger brother and slowed to match Sasuke. "Nay," Naruto nudged the boy who was panting. Even though they had been running for an hour or so, Naruto didn't care. Sasuke didn't even bother to respond. Naruto insulted Sasuke by saying, "Shay, you're boring, slowpoke," while he sped up, laughing to himself. Itachi was very different from his younger brother. No drive, no strength, no intimidating aura. Naruto felt let down. Sasuke lacked the strength to compensate for his lack of fun. He ran behind his sensei but ahead of his teammates. Naruto abandoned his jovial demeanor. He was lonely and exhausted. Kyuubi, Oni-san, astonished but wary, he looked quizzically at his teammates and then at his sensei after something whizzed by his face, missing his eye by 2 millimeters. They all didn't appear to be listening. To find what had taken him by surprise, he took a detour. He was either getting out of touch, or it was the only thing that could surprise him. He located the offending weapon and retrieved it from the ground, his heart in his throat. There was a small scroll attached. With a quick glance around to make sure no one was watching, Naruto awkwardly unfolded the scroll. Itachi's barely readable scrawl was it. As he read the contents, his heart raced in his chest. Naruto. The Chunin analysis. Track down Gaara and beat him. Then I'll come get you. The chakra signature was unmistakably Itachi's, even though it was unsigned. In order to rejoin his teammates, he ran back to the path. Naruto thought eagerly, shortly. Running up to Kakashi-sensei, he did so. "Kakashi-sensei!" Naruto exclaimed with enthusiasm. "When are the Chunin examinations?" When he replied, 4 months, "Why?" Kakashi-sensei gave him a bored look. "Because I have to go up in ranks as soon as possible," a haughty Naruto declared. "I just want to know how much time I need to prepare." "Naruto-kun. Don't worry, I'll train you to become a Chunin." Gazing up at Kakashi-sensei, Naruto grinned and asked, "Honto ni? Thanks." Naruto felt the blood rushing through his body for 4 more months. "Then he'll come get me." Oni-chan, Naruto moaned as he twisted uneasily in his stuffy blankets, indicating that he was sick. Sweat trickled from his feverish head and he cursed his life. He was never ill, however, it appeared that even that had no boundaries. After the intensive training session, a few weeks prior, he was unable to get out of bed one morning. His movements were awkward, and his vision was so clear that it taxed his brain. It was as though his soul had been placed in a much more heightened vessel. He couldn't recall the last time he was able to think clearly because of the fever that quickly followed. He relaxed when something cool touched his forehead. Naruto groaned as it soon started to heat up. They took it off and put another cool cloth in its place. Naruto was grateful to whoever was with him during this hazy process, which lasted for a while as he drifted in and out of consciousness. Naruto. It was a whisper, soft and alluring. More times than he could remember, he had wished to hear that voice. Desperate to speak to the one person he had longed to see, he muttered words. He painstakingly whispered, "Ida, Chi," as he reached blindly for the arms that had once been familiar. The voice reprimanded softly, "Shush, silly child, becoming ill like this. It is unlike you, Naruto," with concern emulating the reprimand. His searching hand was taken by another. The continuous use of advanced jutsus and kunais had worn it down. Naruto calmed down. Itachi let out a sigh of relief from his tired mind. Naruto opened his eyes with a bleary struggle. He needed to see his Oni-chan to help him get through the final 3 months before the Chunin exam, even if this was just a dream. His eyes met the blood-red Sharingans as he tried to concentrate. Those sophisticated eyes. It must be Oni-chan. His eyes were shielded by a rough hand. "Don't make the effort, Naruto. Your body has not properly adjusted." Naruto would have sobbed uncontrollably if he had the strength to do so. Here, his Oni-chan was looking after him. Comforted by his most treasured person's presence, he drifted off to sleep without dreams. When he opened his eyes, he was astounded by how vivid his apartment's typically muted colors appeared. He could see the chakra colors of various people if he put enough effort into seeing through the walls. His happy features were marred by uncertainty as he sat up suddenly. Was it all a dream? I thought I saw Itachi. He examined his hands. Despite having the same appearance, they were more flexible than before. Stunned by the raw power that poured through them, he experimented with flexing them. Naruto scowled. There was a problem. He sensed it in his stomach. His insides were twisted in pain from something so horrible. Kyuubi. When Naruto realized what had happened, he sobbed bitterly. Kyuubi was no longer there. His body had changed in reaction to Kyuubi's complete absorption. Loud, frame. Racking sobs reverberated in the empty apartment, causing his shoulders to tremble. There would be no more gentle, private discussions with the creature he had portrayed as his father figure now that the fusion was complete. Howling his agony to the unresponsive walls, he curled up on his bed and pulled his knees up to his chin. He felt sorrow for the Kyuubi who professed to love him. For 13 years of his brief but eventful life, the Kyuubi had been a constant presence. He would not think twice about returning the Kyuubi if he could exchange the power that was racing through his body. Longing for the answer he knew would not come, he mentally summoned the Kyuubi. 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 Oto-san. Otou-san. Desperate to locate the recognizable flaming red chakra, he dashed through the maze of his thoughts. The corridors were twisting into darkness and deserted. Unheeded, tears fell down his cheek. To fill the void in his thoughts, he screamed, but all he got was nothing. There was no sign of Kyuubi Oto-san. He sobbed as the only way he knew how to deal with the situation. He sat on his bed, staring out the window without knowing how long he had been there. Unconsciously, he noted that the moon was full. Kyuubi had been a big fan of full moons. He claimed that the moon caused the ocean waves to dance all over the world and revealed a softer side in all of creation. In contrast to the brightly shining light, the stars shone dimly, and Naruto struggled to keep from smashing the window that surrounded him in his cramped room. He couldn't remember how long he had been sick, but he did notice, for a moment, that his teachers had visited based on the notes they left in the food on his bedside table. His teammates had also paid him a visit, leaving strewn about blossoms that were now withered with hopelessness. To be honest, he couldn't give a damn. Until he was reunited with Itachi, he felt more alone than ever. Naruto would have been shocked to see the icy, aloof expression in his own eyes if he had been gazing into a mirror. He awkwardly got out of bed and walked to the bathroom, feeling the physical need to use his restroom facilities. Because of his abnormally quick reflexes, he avoided running into any furniture that was in his way. He staggered back into his bedroom after using the restroom, staring at the window with a sad expression. A tiny kunai that dangled loosely on a branch outside his window caught his attention. He grabbed the kunai and opened the window, morbidly curious and ready to divert his mind. It was a scroll. He opened the scroll reluctantly. He was aware that Kyuubi was actively involved in Naruto's life, and Naruto was curious about what Itachi had written. Furthermore, if the scroll was present, it indicated that Itachi's care for him was real. Oni-chan, he opened the scroll carefully, painfully conscious of his new strength. Naruto, I'm observing you. Get better. Keep your strength strong. The Kyuubi is always at your side. Right up until the Chunin exams. Have patience. Closing the scroll gently, he looked around at the mess that had become his room. The room was covered in food. His attendants had evidently been preoccupied with feeding him. A wry, cynical smile crept onto his lips. Have patience. Those were what kind of words? He was so alone that how could he be patient? He heard footsteps and looked toward his door. Someone was on their way. His vision swam when he attempted to see through the door. It appeared that the ability to see through solid objects had time restrictions. He moved quickly to his doorway and, ready to kill, slipped kunais onto his finger. Uruki-sensei emerged with a basket of fruits and vegetables as the door creaked open. Naruto let out a quiet sigh of relief and put the kunai in his pockets. He muttered, "Uruki-sensei," to his academy sensei. He even thought his voice sounded odd. His evolved body would require a great deal of acclimatization. Uruka gently reprimanded Naruto, pushing him back into bed. "Naruto? You shouldn't be out of bed," he said. Naruto lied down and obeyed. He found it difficult to keep his eyes open as he heard the sounds of meticulously rearranging things throughout the apartment. Kyuubi would not tolerate such cowardice, but he wanted to forget. "Here, Naruto. Please drink this," Uruka said softly as he helped Naruto sit up. Uruka handed him a cup of vegetable juice that was murky. Naruto drank the juice out of automatic compliance, only to spit it out in disgust. Naruto yelled, "Yuck, Uruka-sensei, are you trying to poison me?" with rage. Uruka picked up towels from the area around his bed and used them to clean the blankets. "Naruto, it is a highly concentrated vegetable juice that will heal you quickly. Be more thankful. It docked at least 30% of my meager teacher's pay." "Oh," was Naruto's sheepish response. He had a tendency to forget the finer things in life, like food and bills. Since the Hokage provided him with almost everything, he thought he should be more grateful to him. Uruka gave him a serious look before glaring at the cup. Naruto swallowed unsurely. If you couldn't win a psychological battle, what good was having power? Naruto swallowed the foul mixture grudgingly, pinching his nose with one hand. With relief, Uruka grinned. "That should make up for all the nutrients you lost while you were ill." "How long was I sick?" "I'm glad you're all right, Naruto," Uruka explained politely, her soft brown eyes deepening with concern. "A week. Kakashi-sensei said in passing that you didn't arrive for training one day. I was worried and stopped by to find you with a blazing fever." Naruto's admiration for the Chunin teacher increased significantly, and tears pricked at his eyes. "Thank you, sensei," he exclaimed as he collapsed to give the kind teacher a hug. "Naruto, if you have any problems, don't hesitate to come to me, all right? I remember the loneliness of being an orphan, so..." Naruto was too choked up to talk, so he just nodded silently. "Kyuubi Otou-san, I'll do everything in my power to live for us both." Getting back in service only took a few days. As soon as Naruto walked into the training grounds, Kakashi's eyes brightened with relief. Training was challenging since he had to control his strength and speed, particularly because he didn't want to unintentionally kill Itachi's younger brother during the fictitious fights with Sasuke. The missions were dull and tiresome. Naruto hardly ever actually took part in them. Who would want to look for missing cats and pull weeds from a garden? When he saw the cat's repulsive owner, he personally wanted to help it escape, but as a shinobi, his opinion was irrelevant. They were in front of the committee that assigned missions, just like any other day. Naruto demanded a mission that wasn't a D-class mission while glaring at the Hokage. The Hokage stared intently for a minute before nodding. "Here is your mission then. You will escort a gentleman to the country of the wave." When the Hokage went on to speak, Naruto paused and grinned back. "Be careful, Naruto." He blinked, startled. How come so many people were interested in him? Because he did not share their concern. A part of his mind felt bad. Itachi was the only person he was loyal to. Ignoring his teammates' curious looks, he said softly, "Hi." As he walked out of the room. His teammates were a liability. However, as he was on the team in the interim, it was his responsibility to ensure their survival, particularly that of Uchiha Sasuke. A drunken yell marred the moment. They had to escort a tall, big, boned man. His muscled body was covered by a loose work shirt that was cut off at the shoulders, and his grayed hair was barely hidden by a large straw hat. The client drew lead. "So these brats are going to escort me? Are they good enough?" One of the shinobi on the committee calmly replied, "It should be fine, Tazuna-san, because there is a Junin among them." Kakashi interrupted, saying, "Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, we'll meet up at the western gate in 1 hour." Without acknowledging the orders verbally, Naruto walked home. After arriving, he looked in his closet for the cloak he had put away nearly 7 months prior. 7 months have passed. He gave a sour smile. Who would have imagined that so much would shift? He located the cloak, pulled it out, and breathed in the cloth. Scents from his past journeys continued to cling obstinately to the fabric. The fabric wasn't particularly noteworthy. It was just a nice piece of black fabric that was meant to hang loosely around his body and protect him from the cold nights. Reaching back into the closet, Naruto took out his traveling attire, which included loose black pants with so finely stitched pockets that they appeared to be devoid of them. Naruto then filled the pockets with small shurikens and kunais. He added 30 medicinal needles as an afterthought. He pulled out his black shirt at last. Although it was more of a tank top, it was functional. The fabric was long, lasting and retained heat better than the priciest cashmere. He put a number of scrolls in the strategically placed hidden pockets of these as well. Naruto hurried to the meeting spot after changing into the clothes and taking a quick look in the mirror. He had nothing better to do, so it didn't matter that he was early. It had happened in a flash. They had been alone for a moment, and then a huge sword was flying in their direction. Instinctively, Naruto pushed Sakura and the client to the ground, hoping Sasuke would be astute enough to avoid them. Naruto was relieved when he did. The rumor that Sasuke was a brilliant rookie had some truth to it. A mist formed as the surrounding air grew thicker. When Naruto noticed a shadow approaching their client quickly, he quickly used a kunai to block the enormous sword. The drunken man's death would not be acceptable. He easily sidestepped the opponent's kick at his side. Naruto turned into a blur and punched the clone, breaking it apart. The enemy was tall and well built. He complained to himself about his own height. In any case, why was he so short? He had no shirt on, and his beady eyes were adorned with tiny eyebrows. Naruto could tell by the enemy's aura that the shinobi knew a lot about death. He's most likely a Junin level foe, Naruto reflected calmly. He looked speculatively at Kakashi and an idea ignited in his mind. A battle at the Junin level would be fun to watch. He turned to look at Sakura. She bravely moved to stand in front of Tazuna-san despite her trembling arms. For her first battle, this was a good response. Let us now examine Sasuke's condition. His eyes might have mirrored Sakura's and Sasuke's fear if he had been a rookie. Perhaps the sense of murderous intent that pervaded the air and appeared to terrify his teammates would have suppressed him. His dissatisfaction with Itachi's younger brother was not concealed by these thoughts. Sasuke appeared determined to end his own suffering, and fear radiated from his trembling body. Naruto said softly, "Oi, Sasuke," in a disapproving tone. Sasuke jerked back, gazing at the fierce Junin fight that was just getting started. Naruto said, "You can't be serious. You're scared of Mr. No Eyebrows. What kind of avenger are you?" in a tone that was icy and possibly even cruel. Rising from his trance, Sasuke raised his gaze to scowl at Naruto. Naruto smiled to make Sasuke angry. That response was much better now. Naruto considered revealing his own intention to kill, but he was afraid it would frighten the enemy and his teammates away. With a sigh, he turned to observe the intensifying conflict. He moved brilliantly, and the enemy's attacks were all well planned. If Naruto had felt like fighting, that shinobi would have been an entertaining opponent, but Kakashi won this battle. Kakashi's movements were also incredibly fluid. The battle was entertaining to watch and resembled a well choreographed ballet with many spins and leaps that would dizzy the average person. When Naruto witnessed the enemy use a jutsu, his eyes narrowed. He was disappointed to see Kakashi trapped in a ball of water, as he had hoped he would be ready to avoid this strange technique. "Ah, I have to show off now," Naruto thought glumly. He was a real stickler for keeping his cards to himself. The adversary made another water bunshin and advanced on them. Naruto silently created a cage bunshin by mentally going through the seals. He only needed to release Kakashi so that the Junins could start fighting again. A part of him wondered why the enemy didn't cut through the water prison and kill Kakashi. Although it would be less messy that way, Naruto wasn't one to waste the chance to save his awkward teacher. Using the shadows as cover, Naruto hurried toward the actual opponent while sending the cage bunshin to play with the Mizu bunshin. It took less than half a second because of his unfathomable speed. "Anyo." Naruto tapped the mist shinobi's shoulder in a playful manner. "Do you mind releasing Kakashi-sensei and finishing your battle? It's kind of boring the way it is now." Naruto put his hands in front of him in a conciliatory manner and laughed sheepishly as he avoided the sword. The enemy's enraged attacks were easily avoided by him. "Please don't misunderstand, I don't want to fight you. You're too weak for my tastes. Just finish the battle," he urged. He twisted the arm holding the prison just enough to cause it to pull away on its own by falling against it while acting clumsy. As the prison fell apart, he leapt away and nodded to Kakashi, grinning triumphantly. They would now be able to finish the battle and accomplish their goal. "Naruto," said Kakashi firmly. "Stop fooling around and protect your teammates." With a shrug, he pointed to his cage Bunshin, which was engaged in a game with the water Bunshin. "Just listen to me on this one," Kakashi asked gravely. He zipped back to stand beside Sakura and their client, nodding. It was clear from Kakashi's request that he intended to use some enormous jutsu. Maybe he would witness the water dragon's renowned mist technique? Across from the enemy, Kakashi remained motionless. They ran at each, avoiding the next round of assaults. Sharingan, huh? The epitome of hypnotism, Naruto sat on a leaf branch and watched his teammates intently. Kakashi yelled, "Water dragon no jutsu," and the dragon ate the adversary. With a sigh, Naruto dragged Sakura and the client up onto the tree as he saw the wave of water approaching. He got up suddenly. Someone with a strong bloodline ability was close by. He turned slowly to examine his surroundings. Where? Nearby. The adversary. Naruto pulled out his medicinal needles and ran toward the enemy. He hurled them at the approaching individual and was not shocked when they were easily deflected. Ice needles were flung at him, and his eyes narrowed. Naruto believed that limit on bloodline had been eliminated. Naruto said, You're of that mist bloodline, aren't you?" to the masked figure, who was a few inches taller than him. The enigmatic opponent added, "Yes, forgive me, but we will go now," before slinging the adversary over his shoulders and vanishing. With a curse, Kakashi stumbled forward, his constant use of the Sharingan weakening him. To support him, Naruto called forth several Bunshins. Naruto said, "Oi old man. We need a place to rest," with a demanding tone. "Ah, yes," said the customer. "We're almost to my house anyway, you guys can rest there." Gleaming red eyes surveyed the scene thoughtfully and disappeared, as though he had never been there. He was trudging slowly through a pitch black hallway as water appeared out of nowhere beneath his feet. There was enough light for him to see, and the walls were a dark, grimy yellow with an odd, ethereal glow. He shuddered as the sound of the water's ripples reverberated off the bare walls. The landscape brought to mind the location of the Kyuubi's ceiling. It was the Kyuubi that would never come back. Remembering that he was the only one, he scowled bitterly. The creature he could refer to as paternal had vanished. When he came to a dead end, he stopped walking down the corridor. Now what was he meant to do? As though in answer to his silent query, the wall trembled, causing dust to fall in waterfalls that caused him to cough. The sound it produced was so loud that it reverberated in his ears. Another corridor was revealed when the wall parted. He stepped through gamely, cautious but determined to finish this strange dream sequence. Hold on a second, this was a dream sequence. With a sigh of relief, Naruto attempted to awaken. He started to walk because he couldn't. He had been walking for an indeterminate amount of time when he ended up standing in front of an open, barred door. It reminded him of the good times he and Kyuubi had had together. He had his head lowered in loneliness as he walked down a dim hallway. He was by himself. He was ridiculed and mistreated by the children. He was hurting and wished he had a father figure he could hug and weep with. A muffled growl caught his attention, and he looked up in surprise. This was his mind, wasn't it? Shouldn't it only contain him? Curious, he dashed to where the noise was coming from and discovered a massive set of barred gates. Cruel red eyes stared down at him, and for a few seconds he was unable to speak. When Naruto saw the creature's body, he cried out, "Sugoi! What are you doing here, brat?" The powerful voice reverberated in his mind as it demanded. "I didn't know I had you in my mind. This is so cool." It kept watching him, its eyes narrowing. Naruto approached the bars with a smile. When a clawed paw swooped down at him, he leapt back with enthusiasm. Naruto blurted out, "Wow! You must be strong. It must be nice to be strong," thrilled that someone would pay attention. "Who are you anyway?" "The Kyuubi is who I am. I wish I could escape this cage." "How did you get sealed here anyway? It's kind of weird to be sealed in a person, isn't it?" "Stupid kid." The bars shook but did not shatter as the Kyuubi roared and flung itself against the cage. "If it weren't for that cursed seal, I would be free." "Seal" was written on a slip of paper that Naruto saw when he looked up. He cautiously leapt multiple times in an attempt to get to it. He continued to be absent by a few feet. He gazed up at the Kyuubi sheepishly, his blue eyes wide with naivete and barely concealed desire. "Nay, until I find a way to free you, will you be my friend? I promise I will get you out somehow." The Kyuubi's eyes narrowed in suspicion as it looked thoughtfully at him. He felt as though his entire soul was being examined as it searched him. In an unabashed attempt to make this strange creature in his mind his friend, he looked up. It replied, "So be it," in a softer tone. He gave a snort. It was strange that he had been dreaming in a dream. He shook his head, attempting to remove the priceless memories from his mind, and crept through the locked gates. He let his eyes get used to the darkness, and he could just make out the dark outline of a box. He approached it reluctantly, sensing the box's weighty significance. He placed both of his hands carefully on the lid's sides and raised it. Scrolls were in the box. Naruto quickly took them out, curious to see what was inside. He unraveled one with trembling hands and was flooded with visions. Through the Kyuubi's eyes, he saw himself as tiny and unimportant yet exuding such wonder and innocence. He sensed the love that was gradually gaining ground with the scroll's creator. Scrolls detailing his adopted father's enigmatic past were left for him by Kyuubi Odo-san. His eyes started to well up with tears, and he promised himself that he would go back and see them all. He selected a red-tinged scroll and wondered why it was glowing so brightly. He was surrounded by the image of a man perched atop a massive toad, and the images were linked to stronger feelings. He was sadly stared at by fierce blue eyes crowned with billowing shaggy blonde hair. This man's own tales created a fierce wind that caused his cloak to swing wildly. Hesitancy tinted the scene, and the tiny human form radiated power. Naruto was startled when he felt a strong force draw him into the scene and turned everything to drab black. He opened his eyes blearily as he heard a flurry of noises. In his dream, he was in a vision. This sleepy night was restless and nearly exhausting. Shinobi were engaged in combat with a massive shadow. Naruto turned to look closely at the shadow before suddenly getting to his feet. That was the full form of the Kyuubi, if he was not mistaken. He stared at the power that rolled out in waves, in awe. It makes sense why Kyuubi Odo-san desired freedom. The liberated form was a formidable sight, both beautiful and lethal. As Kyuubi flexed in reaction to the Leaf Village's punitive attacks, a sleek body glistened and 9 tails gleamed in the moonlight. With tears in his eyes, Naruto ran toward the Kyuubi but stopped when a toad emerged. Upon realizing that he was merely an observer in a past memory, with the added benefit of experiencing Kyuubi's emotions, he felt someone pass through him. He turned to face an ugly toad with a tiny human on its head at the same moment Kyuubi did. Naruto was shocked to see a reflection of his own blue eyes in the man, who matched the previous description. Who is this man? The man turned back to Kyuubi after giving Naruto a somber look. Kyuubi, he said in a distinct baritone, will you not leave our village? It is forbidden knowledge that you humans have trespassed on. I won't. The Kyuubi's authority bolstered the voice, which reverberated for miles. Then I ask forgiveness from you and my son for what I am about to do, the man said, bowing his head in grief. As he chanted, the man's hands quickly executed a jutsu. As Kyuubi was drawn into its spiritual form with its body in tow, Naruto witnessed and experienced its suffering. In the man's hands, he saw a baby boy who looked uncannily like himself. He also saw 2 chakras, blue and red, fuse into one, swirling and sending wind whiplashes across the valley before finally settling above the baby's stomach. In his last view of the outside world, Kyuubi was taken aback to see the sorrow on his captor's face. My precious son, the young man said, shedding a few tears. Forgive me. Everything turned gray and warped. Tears were streaming down his cheeks as he was taken back to the chamber in his imagination, where the scene lingered. Oi, Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes blearily, wondering if he was having another dream. He saw stars on impact and a hand descending toward his head. Soon after, there was pain. Ow! He screamed, glaring at the perpetuator in the mask. What kind of wake-up call is that? Sweating, Kakashi responded sarcastically, you overslept. It's training time. Inquiring, Naruto observed Kakashi's appearance and asked, what happened to your wounds? Kakashi was clearly exhausted and was resting on a crutch. Oh. To annoy Kakashi, Naruto yawned and stretched slowly. He purposely relaxed his muscles like a cat to spend more time in bed, dodging the flying pillows. As veins began to pop in Kakashi's forehead, Naruto concealed a smile. After the vision he had, it was a nice comic relief. Nay, sensei. If you hit me with a pillow and knock me out, I won't be able to get up, Naruto winked at Kakashi and teased. With great energy, he leapt out of bed and avoided another awkward hand. Naruto. The serious tone of the voice startled Naruto, who looked up in response. You know they will return, don't you? He gave a head nod. With a sidelong glance, Kakashi said, "Will you stop hiding your strength?" Feeling ashamed, he lowered his voice and added, "I'm not strong enough right now to fight them." "Sensei, you damaged that no eye. Browed freak pretty badly, he'll be back around the time you're healed." "I know. It's just that younger shinobi worries me. You might have to kill," Kakashi, who appeared to despise himself for needing to make such a request, said hesitantly. In silent reflection, Naruto closed his eyes and considered whether or not to reveal information that would go against what he had told the Hokage. He made up his mind and answered in a low voice. "Sensei, I've killed many times before. It's just that I don't want to scare my teammates away with the intensity of my killing intent." Kakashi's eyes grew a little wider. "So, my initial hunch was correct. Who trained you?" Naruto replied in a sing-song voice, grinning as usual, "I can't tell you." Kakashi nodded and grinned ruefully. "Well, then please train with your teammates." "Sure." While Sasuke struggled, Sakura walked up the tree with ease, and Naruto laughed, because he didn't want to disappoint his teammates. He hasn't tried walking on the tree yet. Whistling out of tune, he skipped up the tree, keeping his laughter to himself. He slipped and caught himself on a branch that would be better described as a twig while feigning to ignore the glares from his teammates. "Naruto," said Kakashi firmly, "train with more weights on." Naruto groaned as he jumped down and strapped on the weights, gamely complying. They were the utmost specialized weights that drained chakras and increased chakra endurance, or something similar. Naruto exclaimed, "Sensei, where did you get these? These are rare items that even I couldn't find," loudly. Kakashi used the crutch to give him a head bump. "Just train." Naruto stumbled as he ascended the tree. The additional weights were very taxing, and he found it harder to regulate his chakra because of the draining effect. Particularly now that he had more of it. He carefully examined the seals embedded in the weights and repositioned his chakra to maximize its effectiveness. He wouldn't be able to walk on the trees at all if he had too little chakra. If he had too much, it would all be absorbed by the weights. All of this was problematic. He was so focused on his work that he didn't notice his teammates were yelling at him to go home and kept up their hard training. Without getting past this obstacle, he wouldn't be able to sleep anyhow. A week flew by while he processed the information needed to become proficient with the strange weights. "Naruto, you can stop now. You need to eat and sleep too, you know," Kakashi said, kneeling beside Naruto on the tree. In addition, he added, "I want my weights returned." "Kakashi-sensei, look, I mastered it," Naruto exclaimed with joy as he performed an upside-down dance on the branch. He took note of Kakashi's surprised expression and put it away for later consideration. "Congratulations, Naruto!" exclaimed Kakashi with pride. "When we return to Konoha, I can't wait to train you one-on-one. Your potential is probably greater than mine." "I'm going to be greatest ninja ever," Naruto exclaimed with a smile. When Kakashi said, "Now give me back my weights." "Yada, you're not recovered anyway," immediately answered Naruto. Even though he had only just mastered the weights, he wasn't going to give them up. They were enjoyable to train with and extremely uncommon. "Go home and rest, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi gave him a serious look, his face displaying impatience. Naruto swiftly resorted to compromise after spotting a chance to play a game. Using his too adorable to resist sparkly blue eyes technique, he said, "If you catch me in 5 minutes, I'll give it back to you today. If not, I get to train with them one more day." Uncertain of his speed, Kakashi reluctantly agreed. With a sly smile, Naruto ran away, using chakra control sparingly so he would only be slightly ahead of Kakashi. As he ran through the trees, he laughed happily, and before long, unless the person watching had highly skilled Byakugan or Sharingan eyes, the two of them were just blurs. This observer did just that. The observer whispered, "Naruto, soon," and teleported off. Haku remarked thoughtfully that there was a boy lying on the grass. The shinobi in him yearned to put an end to the threat, and he was the blonde boy from the last battle. He moved to awaken his adversary and subdued the desire to kill. He stifled a gasp as his arm was tightly grasped and he slowly moved it to the shoulder. He fought to breathe steadily as piercing blue eyes stared into his own. Haku couldn't help but shiver as the hand holding his arm pulsed with barely least power. As the boy relaxed his hold on his arm, those blue eyes softened and gazed into his soul. As if to preserve the sacredness of the early morning, the boy asked softly, "What's your name?" "Haku," he said instinctively. There was something about the boy that made him follow instructions exactly. "Well, my name is Naruto," Naruto said warmly while sitting up straight and unhurried. "Nay." Surprised, Haku began. Yes. He said softly. Why do you follow Mr. No Eyebrows? Zabuza-san? Haku asked again, startled. Although Zabuza didn't have eyebrows, the fact that the boy recognized him was unsettling. Yeah. Because, Haku said thoughtfully at the start, he is my precious person. After saying, precious person Naruto turned to look at the clouds. I used to have a precious person too, but he left me to train and become stronger. Do you miss him? Naruto turned to face him with excitement as he said, of course I do. But he's really strong and trained me too. Zabuza-san trained me too, Haku said, expressing a strange sense of kinship with Naruto and a longing for the chance to be friends. Naruto said in a sharp and direct voice, Nay, you're lonely aren't you? Haku turned away, his body aching. I can see it in your eyes. You have a precious person, but you're still lonely. The loneliness is painful, isn't it? So much so that you don't know what to do. Even if you have a precious person, you occasionally feel more used than loved. Haku remarked in awe, you're just like me, a tool, understanding that Naruto was speaking from personal experience. Well, maybe, was Naruto's friendly response. Naruto said in a strained voice, I still miss him though. All I know is that, Itachi Oni-chan, wants me to become stronger. I'm sure he wants you by his side also, Haku said, trying to lift Naruto's spirits. Nay, don't come tomorrow on the bridge, asks Naruto tactfully. Neither you nor Zabuza, please. Find another life, another source of money. Why? Asked Haku. Before responding, Naruto looked thoughtfully at the grass. I don't want to kill you. He looked sorrowfully at Naruto and trembled. I cannot change his mind. Naruto scowled. Then tomorrow you will die by my hand. Observing the agony on Naruto's face, Haku watched him calmly as he replied, Thank you for your kindness today, farewell. I will die tomorrow, Haku said, getting up and gathering his basket before turning to wave to Naruto and leaving. Gazing at the dying Haku, Naruto blinked away his tears. His Rasengan had undoubtedly destroyed Haku's internal organs beyond repair, so their battle had ended quickly. He had the feeling that Kakashi was also nearing the end of his fight. Farewell, one who could have been my friend, he whispered as he looked gently into fading white eyes. Haku coughed up blood and rasped, Naruto-san, in response to a soft, pained voice. You are truly kind. Please do not throw away your heart. Naruto held Haku's head tenderly as he laid him down on the floor with sympathetic eyes. Thank you, Haku. As he watched his teammates glare at the dying Haku, his features hardened. When Naruto arrived, they had just about survived the battle. Naruto turned back to face Haku and spit out, he was more honorable than either of you. Naruto-san, Haku forced himself to mumble. I really love the snow. Do you think it will snow? In an attempt to contain his tears, Naruto let a tear slip from his eye and said, Of course it will, Haku. For a pure heart like yours, of course it will. Haku fought to keep his eyes open and coughed up more blood. Thank you, Naruto-san. It was a pleasure meeting you. Death claimed its innocent victim as Haku closed his eyes and froze. Naruto howled in sorrow as the snow started to fall gently. Would he cause the deaths of everyone he valued? Haku was a boy with a golden heart who died after his biological father died, sealing Kyuubi inside himself. Kyuubi allowed himself to be absorbed in order to save him. As Naruto held the boy in his arms and wept, the snow kept falling and his tears were cold, as though the sky itself was mourning for Haku. They had returned home after successfully completing their mission. Sakura felt depressed and frustrated with her own shortcomings, even though she knew she should be happy and relieved. Her teammate Naruto had been the loser, the dropout, and everything she didn't want to be during the final few months of the academy. However, Kakashi-sensei appeared to be more interested in Naruto during their most recent missions than in herself or Sasuke, the person she has always loved. Despite not playing tag with her or Sasuke, Kakashi-sensei joyfully pursued Naruto, his lone visible eye sparkling with laughter. Kakashi-sensei appeared to be training with an equal rather than a pupil. That was disheartening. What made Naruto so unique that they lacked? What made Naruto so powerful? It was nonsensical, and Sakura clenched her hand into a quivering fist. She had to get stronger. She realized after the last mission that Naruto had always been on a different level. He is so strong, I wonder if I will ever be half that. All she could do was train as hard as she could and hope. Her head turned to look at Sasuke, regretfully. Unfortunately, he never gave me a glance. Perhaps it's time to mature. She was the smartest person in her graduating class, Haruno Sakura. Something had to come of that. Wondering why her other teammate was late, she searched for him. Naruto was inexplicably methodical and always on time. Eagerly and optimistically, he did what neither she nor Sasuke wanted to do. Naruto was always so enthusiastic and full of energy, whether he was picking flowers for a crying little girl, chasing down stray cats, or pulling weeds from a client's garden. Sakura realized she didn't know anything about Naruto and wondered who he lived with. If he had relatives, friends, or parents. She had neglected her other teammate because she was so preoccupied with Uchiha Sasuke. She couldn't recall how many times she had been saved by this person. Her gaze grew softer. She questioned whether they could still work things out and become friends with Naruto. He appeared to be kinder and more approachable than Sasuke-kun. Then there was the problem of the water country. Sasuke had fought against an enemy, but Naruto had been so strong and defeated, not killed. Naruto pretended to know the art of death, and he made it seem so simple. It had been a little scary. They had all been on the bridge, and Naruto had turned his head away as though he was deep in thought, even as Sasuke was engaged in combat with the masked shinobi. He didn't enter the fight until Sasuke had been knocked unconscious. The enemy was unable to attack after Naruto used 2 straightforward attacks, and he grieved by holding the boy, Haku, in his arms. She questioned whether he would ever experience such grief for her. She was also resentful that he gave more attention to an enemy than to his teammates. When Kakashi-sensei and Naruto appeared, there was a twirl of leaves and they were both laughing. She was so stunned that she neglected to shout her usual, "You're late." She was envious since they appeared to be friends. She would get stronger. There was no other option. Perhaps then, Naruto would recognize her. He glanced at his other teammate and his sensei and thought, it just wasn't fair. He felt sick because they were so chummy together. What did he not have that dead? Last, despite his noble ancestry from the Uchiha, he lacked any redeeming qualities. He deserved special attention from Kakashi-sensei. He had to kill Itachi to end his suffering because, after all, he was an avenger. Didn't Itachi leave him alive for that reason? In order for Uchiha Sasuke, the brilliant rookie, to murder him? There was no other way to explain it. He needed to gain strength to defeat the loud-mouthed, blonde fool. He simply had to. He recalled the fight with the masked shinobi with bitterness. Without his own Sharingan eyes, the enemy's movements would have been a blur because he had moved so quickly. After he had failed, Naruto had stepped up to the fight with ease and calmly, looking at him with disgust. Sasuke also had a suspicion that Naruto was aware that he had poisoned his kunai in order to hinder the enemy's progress. Particularly considering that Naruto had called him dishonorable. Naruto's decision to end the battle with 2 attacks and his kindness toward the enemy had been humiliating. In any case, what sort of teammate was he? Concealing that power and then outperforming everyone in every way. He detested Naruto. Sasuke had a long way to go, and Naruto was always reminding him of it. Someday, he promised, I'll be superior to him. He would need to persuade Kakashi-sensei to instruct him in the more efficient use of the Sharingan first. He needed to get stronger because he was weak. Strong enough to discipline Naruto by defeating him. He needed to be powerful enough to murder Itachi. I'll murder him. Where had the teamwork gone? He wondered. Sasuke was glaring at them both with malice, while Sakura, the girl in love, appeared to be looking at Naruto intently. His tardiness this time wasn't his fault. For once, he had a good reason for it. However, after glancing at the other 2 soldiers, Itachi chose not to explain his tardiness. The fact that he had been training Naruto was not something he thought they would value. More like sparring with him, actually. Itachi concealed a tiny smile as he looked at his favorite student. Naruto lived up to the Yondaime's sole legacy as a remarkable prodigy with boundless potential. He frequently found it difficult to conceal his ongoing astonishment at how much Naruto resembled his own sensei. Naruto was a diligent, fair, and overachiever's person. Itachi considered himself fortunate to have Naruto as a pupil. However, the shadows were concerning. After going missing for 2.5 years, Naruto still hadn't revealed his whereabouts. It was clear that Naruto had never been adopted by an elderly couple. Naruto had been nurtured and trained by someone to become a formidable force. But more importantly, why would someone do such a thing? Itachi made the decision to closely monitor Naruto until he learned more about his enigmatic pupil. Another issue was Uchiha Sasuke. The spirit of vengeance that blazed in his eyes was ferocious and uncompromising. Sasuke would be consumed by a desperate quest for power if that hatred were allowed to run wild. The loss of the final Uchiha clan member due to power lust would be unfortunate. He had to inform his team about the Chunin examination for the time being, though. "Oi," he said calmly, easing the tense situation. Although you are all rookie genins, I have decided that you are qualified to be chunins. Here are the passes to the chunin examinations. Go to the exam center at room 301 and more information will be given to you. He observed that Naruto's expression brightened with joy. Naruto's potential would be amusing to watch. As he looked at Naruto, Itachi pondered speculatively that opening the doors was his only option. The test was dull. Naruto fought to stay awake, drooling from the side of his mouth. He glanced around dimly, slurping his drool back into his mouth. In theory, he and his teammates were expected to arrive here. However, he was disturbed by Sakura's strange behavior. It was really annoying that she was actually listening to him. He was unpleasant to be around because Sasuke had chosen to put a deathly expression on his face. He was therefore drowsy as he waited for the rest of his team in the back of the classroom, surrounded by other obnoxious genins. Naruto rubbed his sleeve to wipe away the drool as he searched for a cozy spot to nap. The majority of the other genins, who were estimating one another with the intention of killing, were fortunately silent. He was about to fall asleep when he was awakened by loud noises coming from the entrance. He opened one eye languidly and looked down at more leaf genins, complaining. Sasuke had this strange yellow girl swooning over him, which was amusing enough. Oddly, Sakura was scanning the space. It was expected that she would also be swooning over Sasuke. Naruto thought, strange, but then he shrugged and the thoughts left him. Naruto could not give a damn about the other genins who most likely graduated from his class. The one with the pineapple ponytail, that is. His stance exuded annoyance and sloth, and unwittingly, Naruto found himself intrigued. Clever. Whoa, I had no idea that there was a bright student in our class. When Naruto's curiosity was aroused and he was ready to leap down and introduce himself, a second person with ponytails stepped in front of him. Naruto gave the newcomer a suspicious narrow of the eyes. He wore a Leaf Village forehead protector and his platinum hair was pulled back. The man's eyes glinted ominously as the round, rimmed glass perched on the tip of his nose. Since the other genins appeared to be attentively listening to whatever the guy had to say, it is clear that they were not affected by the odd aura. Spy, Naruto grinned slyly. He had underestimated how much fun this examination would be, particularly considering the least chakra and the unsettling bloodline limit that the odd man was radiating. Speaking of odd men, he remembered that he had to locate Gaara. In order to find this strange Gaara of the sand, Naruto remained in his hidden corner and used his enhanced eyes to see through people. He searched for sand forehead protectors and discovered a group of 3 people who appeared to be about his age. A strange gourd was strapped to the back of one of them. He must be there. If anything, Naruto was impressed by the brat's ability to control the gourd's leaking murderous intent. He must like to kill. What does Oni-chan want me to do with him, I wonder? Oh well. Soon enough, I'll find out. I suppose I will watch him for the time being. His focus was returned to his teammates. He couldn't let their own foolishness kill them. The other 2 had to be alive because it appeared that this examination required some kind of teamwork. Or at least, he assumed, breathing. Naruto stretched leisurely before greeting his late teammates. Yo, he said nonchalantly, gesturing to Sakura with one hand. At the moment, Sasuke didn't appear to be very open to greetings. Sakura pointed angrily at him while he laughed. She yelled, you, where were you? As a thin streak of smoke rose from her ears. Ehehe, he scratched the back of his head sheepishly. With a smile, Naruto replied, I was napping, up there, indicating the corner where he had been seated before. Sakura leapt to strangle him while yelling. Playfully tugging at her hair, Naruto slipped past her with ease. He said in a derisive tone, Sakura, you should cut your hair because it gets in the way. He turned to smile at Sakura after giving the platinum-haired genin a glare full of murderous intent. She was furious. As she charged at him once more, the small trail of smoke grew into a massive billow. Naruto put his finger on Sakura's forehead to stop her, grinning so that his eyes were half moons of joy. Sakura-chan, you don't want to bring unwarranted attention on your cute little self, do you? Be quiet, he whispered softly as he leaned over to her side. She stared at him, her eyes widening with shock. He turned to the platinum-haired genin, and his smile hardened. Uzumaki Naruto. Genin, abilities unknown. Said in passing he wanted to be the Hokage. So, what about it? He asked calmly, letting a hint of murderous intent come through. Kabuto said, oh. I beg your pardon. My name is Kabuto, with a smile. Naruto steadily looked at Kabuto. Don't interfere with my teammates. You'll regret it. Kabuto turned to face him, seemingly assessing his own advantages and disadvantages. We'll see about that, won't we? Kabuto turned to introduce himself to the pineapple-haired genin, but Naruto laughed sarcastically and pointedly ignored him. He waved his arms in front of his peer and exclaimed, "Oi!" with enthusiasm. He was glared at by irritated obsidian eyes. He drew lead. "What do you want, idiot?" He seemed to find speaking annoying. Naruto grinned sincerely. He's the kind of guy the first liked. He was quite interested and asked, "What's your name?" Dryly, Shikamaru shoved his hands in his pockets and remarked, "Nara Shikamaru. Shouldn't you introduce yourself when you were asking for someone's name?" He said, "Naruto. Let's be friends, nay? I'll protect you," anticipating rejection. In the first place, it was an odd suggestion, and it had escaped his lips before he could control it. A languid, "Che. Sure, less bothersome for me," Shikamaru replied. Naruto suspected Shikamaru would be drooling at this very moment if it weren't considered socially taboo. He looked at the fat man munching on some potato chips. "I'll protect him too," he added, gesturing to Shikamaru's companion. They seemed to be friends, at least. Shikamaru softened his voice and asked, "Choji? I'd appreciate it." "You're funny. Che, I'd say that of you. What kind of idiot asks someone he meets for the first time to be his friend anyway?" Naruto pointed to himself with an unabashed smile. "I do, if I think that person is worth my time." "Naruto-kun," Sakura interrupted doctrinally. She tangled her hair between her fingers uneasily. Her eyes shone with determination, and Naruto studied her face closely before nodding. "Will you protect me too? I know that I haven't been the best teammate, but I'd like to try harder," she said. "Of course. You're my teammate. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, we'll get out of this easily." She appeared relieved, and Naruto thought about this new development. Perhaps she is maturing. Naruto let out a defeated sigh as Sasuke continued to glare at him. "Sasuke, if you keep glaring like that, you're going to get nasty wrinkles. Besides, we have to work as a team. So deal with it." "HN." Naruto motioned for everyone to sit down, realizing that was the best response he would get. In any case, the first examination was long overdue. As soon as they were seated, a strange man in a navy trench coat with numerous facial scars came into the room. As he strode to the center of the room, he glared at each examinee with cruel eyes. "He's a little strong," Naruto said excitedly. Perhaps he would face greater difficulty. He would need to pass the test first, though. In a commanding tone, Morino said, "My name is Morino Ibiki. I'm your first examination proctor. Your first exam is a written test." It was gravelly, as though its sole purpose was to make his victims fearful. With a harsh scratching sound, he started writing on the chalkboard after taking a chalk from his pocket. As Naruto read the rules that Morino was drafting, he grinned. "Do not be dishonest. You will fail the test if you are caught cheating. Don't speak. The team fails if one member fails." "Sue." Naruto pondered. This guy must be an interrogator. With steely eyes glinting icily at them, Morino declared, "I'm assuming all of you can read, so I will not humiliate you by reading the rules out loud. You may begin." Morino snapped, looking at his watch. "The test is 1 hour long. The last question will be revealed at the 45-minute mark. There will be proctors at the end of every aisle to observe you." Naruto smiled as he turned the test paper over. These were questions that could not be answered by a mere genin. This demonstrates that gathering information was the main goal of the test. It was suspicious, though, that there was a final question. Naruto leaned his head against his folded arms on the table and shrugged. This exam wasn't as hard as he had anticipated, and he was in dire need of a nap. Naturally, a stressful cheating scenario would be set up to weed out the weaklings, since the Morino Ibiki person was a professional interrogator. Which was okay with him because all he wanted to do was sleep. "Number 135, fail," said a piercing voice. The failure protested by getting up. "I wasn't cheating. The teammates of number 135, please leave the classroom." "You bastard." A faint scuffle and the sound of someone being carried out could be heard. Naruto shifted his arms to a more comfortable position and yawned. He still had half an hour to rest. After calling numerous other numbers, the proctor eventually resumed speaking. With bleary eyes, Naruto glanced up and saw that the exam was now 15 minutes away. "It is now time for the final question. This question is worth 100% of your grade. Just as a note, if you get this question wrong, you will relinquish your right to take the Chunin examination for the rest of your life. If you give up now, you can retake the examination in 6 months. To give up, just raise your hands and leave the room. If your teammate gives up, the team must go." 1 tense minute went by. Numerous trembling hands timidly raised themselves in the air. If they had so little courage, it would be best if they left now, Naruto snorted softly. The people leaving didn't deserve his time, so he didn't bother to look at them. The proctor did not speak for another 5 minutes. All right. There are 9 teams left. Not bad, Morino said, clapping his hands and flashing crinkly eyes. Congratulations. You all pass. All of a sudden, a chakra force charged into the room. Naruto stiffened and restrained his attack. He suspected that this examiner was another odd one. A human cannonball twisted in the air and landed skillfully on 2 feet, while glass broke. She looked around the classroom, then raised her voice. Obnoxious. He let out a moan. She had a crazy sparkle in her eyes and resembled a female Shikamaru, but she was more ugly and impolite. She sarcastically remarked, 9 teams EHEBT. Not too bad. Still a little more than I expected. I guess you're losing your touch, before turning the class around. With an unsettling sparkle in her eyes, Anko exclaimed excitedly, well, I'm Mitarashi Anko and I'll be your second examiner. You are expected to be at the entrance of the Forest of Death by noon. You are dismissed. Well, she's bloodthirsty. Not important. Naruto got up slowly and stretched before approaching his teammates. For fun, he said, I'm going to go eat lunch, anyone want to join me? Sakura nodded after giving him a contemplative glance. What about you, Sasuke? HNNN, was the only response he received. Naruto gave a menacing grin. You're too good to eat with your teammates Uchiha Sasuke-kun. Tisk tisk. As Kakashi-sensei would say. Where is the teamwork? He easily sidestepped the awkward blow and kept getting Sasuke more agitated. This fool had a greater range of emotions than even Itachi. He went on gravely, his eyes open to show deep blue eyes devoid of the mischievous gleam they typically possessed. If you're an Avenger, you need to be able to do more than hate idiot. You need something to protect to avenge something you have lost, he said. After saying quietly, you can only become strong when you have someone to protect, he turned on his heel and motioned for Sakura to go eat, leaving Sasuke in disbelief. Perhaps, like his older brother, Itachi's younger brother also needed a heart. He grinned broadly at Sakura, thinking wryly that it must be inherited. Let's eat ramen. Is that all right with you? Sakura cheerfully replied, yeah, as long as we don't eat it all the time. Okay. Her eyes were filled with relief that there had not been any serious violence among her teammates. With eagerness, he nodded. Since I'm feeling nice, I'll put it on Kakashi-sensei's tab. Kakashi sneezed twice while talking to his fellow Junins somewhere in Konoha. Sakura gave him a candid smile in return. In order to prevent her death, Naruto would train her to become stronger. Now that her obvious infatuation with Sasuke had subsided, she appeared to want to put in the work. After all, it was his responsibility as her teammate. They left as soon as the gates opened. More precisely, they cautiously entered the Forest of Death. Naruto simply walked in with his arms folded behind his head. Sensing Itachi's chakra, he tensed up. Itachi. He is present. Naruto turned and vanished, saying apologetically, hey, sorry to do this to you guys, but how about we meet up again soon? I have something to do. Stay alive till then, and run if you have to, I'll be back as soon as I can. He appeared before his adopted Oni-chan after focusing on the chakra. His features were clouded by worry as he studied the fathomless Sharingan eyes and gaunt features. Naruto hurried to catch Itachi as he collapsed toward the ground, looking worn out. Naruto, the faint murmur said. As Naruto held him tenderly and checked him for any severe injuries, he saw that Itachi's fatigue was simply the result of overdoing it. Baka Oni-chan. How could you forget to eat? Naruto chastised, searching for rations in his own pack. He probably forgot to take care of himself because he knew Itachi. It appeared that geniuses lacked common sense. He located the rations, took them out, and put it to Itachi's lips. Here, chew slowly. As Itachi dutifully ate and silently passed him water to wash it down, he relaxed. Itachi's color appeared to have improved with the food intake, though it was still a little pale. He even managed to look like a sheep. A quiet, I was watching over you Otuto-chan, Itachi answered. Naruto leaned Itachi against the trunk of a tall tree and shook his head in exasperation. That doesn't mean you have to fall on old habits and forget to take care of yourself. Sheesh. I knew I should have just searched for you those months ago. What were you thinking just dropping me off here and leaving? Why didn't you stay with me? I thought you were my Oni-chan. The phrases came out as he grasped Itachi's. I thought that of all people, you at least, would stay by my side. Why? If you were nearby, why didn't you come talk to me? With elegance, Itachi raised a finger and swung it across Naruto's forehead. He waited for Itachi's response, squirming. I am not welcome in Konoha. Wah. Let me finish the story of the Uchiha clan. I suppose it's time for you to know who your own history and family, or lack thereof. He gazed at Itachi, stunned and wide-eyed. This was the last thing he had anticipated talking about. Did that imply that he intended to go forever? Are you going to leave me? Naruto asked in a tremulous voice, scowling. Before responding, Itachi looked into his eyes and said, if it helps you, yes. In order to prevent Itachi from leaving again, Naruto muttered, I don't want you to, please. I've met people I can count as friends, but no one can fill the void of being my family, except you. No one. Let me finish my story, we don't have that much time. With a nod, Naruto sat intently, curious to hear Itachi's thoughts. A few days before you were born, the great Kyuubi attacked the Konoha village. At that time, only a few knew the real reason why he attacked. Naruto said aloud, knowledge that was forbidden. He clarified his explanation after noticing Itachi's shocked expression. Kyuubi left his memory in my mind, and I happened to see that one. Interesting. The forbidden knowledge was immortality. The Kyuubi was the guardian of the knowledge and it was stolen from him, so he attacked the village in retribution. At that time Yondaime was soon to be a proud parent had not the dire situation arose. Your mother, Urashi Haruka, died during childbirth. There were too many complications and the knowledge that her beloved would die weighed heavily on her heart. Naruto gazed in disbelief at him. Was his father Yondaime? Itachi verified his suspicion, as though reading his thoughts. Yes, you are the son of the Yondaime. Your father's dying wish was that the Uchiha clan would raise you honorably and well. However, it was not to be. The clan heads refused to take in the child of the Yondaime and the Sandaime raised you as best as he could. That is, before you decided to take things into your own hands and ran away. To my shame, my family harbored the secrets they had stolen from the Kyuubi in the main holdings. One night after a mission, I came home to find most of my clan dead. It was Orochimaru, one of the 3 senins. He told me jeeringly what my family hid from the village and myself. The massacre, the deaths of so many were all due to my family's greed for power. I fought him and when he ran away, I confronted my father, the current family head, and he admitted the sins of my family. They planned on killing you to ensure that anything relating to the incident would be erased. I was furious and killed them as recompense. And I searched for you to fulfill a promise that should have been kept. Was he only that? A duty? You are my little brother. It was a kind reassurance that allayed his anxieties but also sparked new inquiries. What about Sasuke? Why did you make him an avenger? Itachi's expression was fixed in a slightly surprised manner. Furrowing his brows in perplexity, Naruto said, he is my stepbrother. The Uchihas were a complex family. I was adopted from the branch family when I was 4 years old due to my overwhelming talent. My parents were disposed of. Then you are kind of like me, you don't know your parents. Itachi gave a nod. Nay, why did you want me to find Gaara? Itachi's eyes glowed with amusement before he responded, I'm surprised you remembered. Naruto blushed after processing that phrase for a few seconds. Hey, that's mean. Itachi gave Naruto a gentle head pat. I suppose your brain has suffered due to the fact that there are so many people. It's understandable. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and grinned sheepishly. There was a joke from Itachi. A joke was a joke, even though it was at his expense. Naruto prepared himself for the explanation as Itachi's face darkened. He has a demon sealed in him. Like me, Itachi gave a headshake. It wasn't done out of love. He was born to be a weapon. His mother was a sacrifice for the demon when he was born. How sad. I have a mission for you. Conquer Gaara's demon. Until you complete it, I'll work on something else. There is much trouble brewing in this world. Naruto muttered, his eyes downcast, so you're leaving again. Not for long. We'll meet up here after the Chunin exam is over. Return to Sasuke and Naruto. Please make sure he doesn't die. He needs to revive the clan and I will ensure that this time, the Uchiha will not be corrupt. Naruto grabbed the remaining rations and shoved them into Itachi's hands. Here, take this and promise to eat it. Promise me you'll take care of yourself and that you'll live. Don't use Main's Sharingan too much, there's only so much your body can handle. Promise? I promise. Naruto turned to face his teammates with a smile on his face and waved goodbye. Itachi went in his direction, lifting the corners of his lips in what appeared to be a smile. After a few minutes, Naruto noticed a group of people holding 2 scrolls. He stole the scrolls, smiled cheekily, and went on his way, invisible as the wind. He refrained from laughing when he noticed their perplexed expressions. Scrolls of Earth and Heaven. The mission has been completed. I need to locate my other teammates now. He moved briskly, using his senses to find his teammates, and accelerated when he saw that their chakras were waning. Someone attacked, shit. Someone extremely powerful, on par with Itachi. Chanting, he flew through the trees. I don't want to be late. When a massive snake lunged at him with the intention of swallowing him whole, he leapt into a clearing. He punched the snake on the forehead while concentrating chakra on his fist, not pausing to observe its demise. Sakura was unconscious, so he finally appeared beside her and examined her for injuries. She appeared fine, though she was tired and scraped. He looked around the clearing and discovered Sasuke being held by the neck. Adrenaline flooded his body as anger surged through it. His mind replayed Itachi's voice. Please make sure he doesn't die. He grabbed Sasuke's prone body and sliced the arm holding him, moving faster than he believed was possible. He was relieved to discover that Sasuke was only depleted of chakra after searching for any damage. Sasuke had not yet been subjected to whatever it was that person had planned to do. Naruto screamed at the enemy, "You bastard, why did you attack them like this?" The cool response from a slimy, unreliable voice was, "It is none of your business." He pointed to his chest and exclaimed, "Hell yeah it is. They're my teammates. Anyone who messes with them, messes with me." As he flew in the direction of the enemy, Naruto noticed that the snaky guy had already regenerated his arms, then prepared to die, brat. Finally, he let his desire to kill loose, and as he moved forward, chakra blazed from his body. As he moved in for the kill, the snake guy's expression of surprise was priceless. If this guy wasn't on Itachi's level, one hit would be enough. The enemy threw a smoke bomb and vanished, knowing he would be defeated. How dull. The man was a coward. With his chakra almost destroying the branch that was holding him, Naruto landed on a nearby branch. He jumped back to his teammates after cooling his chakra. He made sure to hide his chakra as he leapt through the trees, carrying Sasuke on one shoulder and Sakura on the other, and made his way to the tower. The conclusion of the test would be the safest location for his teammates. He came to the double doors leading inside after racing through the trees, hardly perceptible to Junins. Gently, he placed his teammates on the floor after kicking open the door. He needed to rest before tending to his teammates' injuries because he had expended a lot of chakra to get to the building in an hour. He let out a sigh of relief and rested against the wall to rest. This portion of the test seemed to come to an official end when he opened the scrolls. Before going to the next stage, they needed to rest, and Naruto wasn't foolish enough to dive right in. Naruto smiled softly and gave himself permission to relax. He had saved them, and it was more important than he wanted to acknowledge. Anko. It should be almost over now. It's the end of the 5th day after all, said an inferior. Play the tapes. Let's see who made it so far. 4 teams. The first one finished in 6 hours and 15 minutes. That's great, better than I expected. The other 2 took about 3 days. Average, but not bad I suppose. What happened to the rest of the teams? A Chunin hurried into the screening room in a panic. Anko-sama. The 3 other teams are dead. What? She looked at the Chunin incredulously, her face filled with shock. How is that possible? She regarded the tape thoughtfully. The image of a boy with red hair holding a gourd kept flickering. This genin killed them all. And he isn't even scratched. What the hell is that? A blonde boy was seen in a video entering with 2 teammates who were unconscious. It said 2 hours. Play that clip again. Anko thought gravely. Talent and oddballs were abundant this year. Glaring at a shaky subordinate, she demanded angrily, "You can't be serious. How is it possible for a genin team to finish in 2 hours? Why wasn't I notified when they came through that door?" Anko-sama. It's just that we didn't know because they didn't open the scrolls right away. Anko ordered, "Call the Hokage. This needs to be investigated. No one can be that talented," as she sat down to go over the tapes. Something had to be missing from their lives. Something significant. A hall with 2 observation platforms on the left and right was the next location for the examination. If he ever got up there, a chipped red railing would be the perfect leaning post and would keep potential idiots from falling. A statue of a Hokage with his hands in a seal stood on a stage in front of him. He suppressed a yawn as the diminutive Hokage yelled about a fatal contest. He gave the Hokage's explanation of the procedure for the last section of the Chunin exam a grudging listen. As he started to reflect on the evolution of 1-on-1 combat, Naruto ignored the other genin's shocked gasps. All he wanted was to avoid having to battle Sasuke. Dealing with teenage angst while fighting would be extremely annoying. Given that only 12 genins passed the second exam, it appeared that a full-scale formal match would be held within a month. This implied that Naruto needed someone to help Sasuke pass the test without dying, or else Itachi Ni-chan would be furious. Additionally, he needed Sakura to live because it would be useless to have a three-man team with just 2 members. This is really annoying. Naruto thought contemptuously, teams are liabilities, and then he carefully put a happy smile on his face. He glanced at the other teams that were passing. The final team was from the hidden village of the sand, while the other 3 were from Konoha. Ignoring the irritation that flashed across Shikamaru's face, he gave the haggard looks of Shikamaru and Choji the thumbs up. Given that the Pineapple Genius team survived the Forest of Death, Naruto's instinct was right and Shikamaru would make a good friend. A Hyuga made up the final Konoha team. Anger and resentment simply fell from his face, and Naruto refrained from moaning. Did Konoha's talented people have a mental illness called angst? It is understandable why Itachi Ni-chan left the village at that time. Naruto also didn't want to put up with the annoying angst of others. The last person on that team was a pretty girl with her hair in buns, and the other teammate was a strange, bushy-eyed freak who was making too much noise. It should come as no surprise that Gaara of the Sand was on the final team, accompanied by a humorous-looking man wearing a black bodysuit and carrying a doll on his back. Instead of bothering to use his Kyuubi vision to see what was inside the doll, Naruto walked past the boy to look at the team's girl. She had a huge fan strapped to her back and her sandy blonde hair pulled back in a pineapple ponytail. Naruto began to perspire. Haruki-sensei, Shikamaru, pineapple styles, and now this sand girl all seemed to be prevalent. Just as the Hokage was setting the matches, he chose to ignore his remarks about their lack of style and instead focus on the elderly man. Uchiha Sasuke versus Gaara. The girls, filled with wonder at Sasuke's beauty, gasped in awe. It appeared that some things would never change, as Naruto snorted at their glassy, vacant gazes. He slapped his hand to his forehead in shock and said, Hyuga Neji versus Uzumaki Naruto. The second Mr. Angst was the one he had to battle. His only wish was that there wouldn't be too much conversation. With a sigh of relief, Naruto said, Haruno Sakura versus Yamanaka Ino. Sakura needed little training to defeat that other girl. Unless she did something really stupid, like fall on her own forehead, she had little chance of dying. Nara Shikamaru versus Rock Lee. That would be a hilarious matchup. Latent Lazy Bum versus Mr. Bushy Eyebrows. Seeing Shikamaru use his brilliance to win the match would be entertaining. The Hokage concluded with a flourish, Tenten versus Tamari and Choji versus Kankuro. The final battles will be in 1 month. You are dismissed. Naruto was taken aback by the power that seemed to suddenly emanate from the elderly man, who exuded an air of authority. Naruto brushed his discomfort aside and walked out of the room. He had a month to get ready for anything. With another demon to contend with, he needed to be in peak physical shape. As he oversaw Sakura's training, Naruto shouted, Sakura-chan. You need to pack more force into that punch. Remember, Ino won't be holding back. The day following the announcement of the upcoming battles, Naruto couldn't help but laugh. Sakura was so weak that it was pathetic that she was regarded as a shinobi. She still had a long way to go, and he was the unlucky one who made sure she would prevail. She was punching at his clone blindly, and he winced in his mind. Even his clone, which in theory possessed 1/10 of his power, was not neutralized by her blows. He gave the clone a mental command to deliver a barrage of quick kicks that Sakura just managed to avoid. Naruto said, "That's enough," and approached a panting Sakura. It was difficult to consider that he had a month to get her in shape. However, Naruto enjoyed a challenge and had big plans to succeed. In particular, he had persuaded Kakashi-sensei to train Sasuke rather than himself. He felt a twinge of guilt at the disappointment that Kakashi-sensei concealed in his eyes, but the look of surprise was priceless. Well, it worked out for the best, and Naruto focused on Sakura to block out the whirlpool of guilt that sank into his stomach. Later, he would make it up to his sensei. He gave his female teammate several weights, which she accepted without protest. Wheezing as she tried to catch her breath, Sakura asked, "What do you want me to do now?" She appeared worn out but resolute. She would persevere through the torturous training Naruto had in store for her thanks to that spirit. When her eyes widened in horror, he laughed and said, "Run for 2 hours around the village. Sakura-chan, you need to build up your endurance. The only way to do that is to maximize your physical strength. Don't worry, I'll be running beside you so you'll be safe. Now put those weights on. Once we're done running, your training for today is done. Tomorrow I want you to show up at 4 in the morning. With a nod, Sakura fastened the weights to her legs and arms. As she tried to walk, a look of disgust and horror flashed across her face. Naruto grinned, his stunning blue eyes glimmering with laughter. I borrowed those weights from Kakashi-sensei. You need to learn how to control chakra all over again. Let's just say it's a different level of chakra control. Come on, let's go. As Sakura fought to put one foot in front of the other, Naruto grinned sincere. As he agitated her, he walked casually beside her, his arms behind his head. In this situation, anger was beneficial because it would result in strength. Sakura simply lacked ambition and was overly sentimental. It was necessary to cultivate that ambition. She would most likely be the strongest female genin in their village due to her skill at controlling chakras. He didn't frown at her for once, and it was worth his time. Naruto started jogging lightly after noticing that she was gradually accelerating. She was learning more quickly than he had anticipated. The words, "Nay, Naruto," were managed by Sakura. "Yeah, I want to apologize." He tilted his head to give her a closer look. She meant it. "Yeah, about what?" "I was so focused on Sasuke that I didn't treat you like a teammate. I'm really sorry." Naruto replied, "Don't worry about it. It's all in the past, right?" With an open smile and moons of happiness in his eyes. She grinned and lowered her head a little. "Thanks." With confidence, he said, "No problem. Just try your best like you're doing now and you'll beat Ino in no time." She let out a friendly giggle and shouted, "Yeah," with her arms raised in the air. She was extremely exhausted. She was so tired she didn't even realize it was possible. She had to walk home even though she really wanted to sleep. It had been a terrible 4 weeks. Naruto's belief in her was the only thing that had sustained her. He urged her to persevere because he knew she could and would succeed. Sakura always considered herself to be tenacious and determined. She even abandoned her friendship with Ino in order to pursue Sasuke for this reason. Sasuke. The one person for whom she sacrificed everything and got nothing in return. Sakura's inner self survived. The handsome boy had long since lost her heart. But until Naruto had come and altered her viewpoints, she had been unable to let go of her feelings for the stoic, haughty Uchiha. Naruto was distant and contemptuous. Was extremely strong and rude to even the prodigy, Uchiha Sasuke. At their age, she didn't believe they could be that strong. Come on, they were 13 years old. It appeared that Naruto knew everything. He was forced to. Because he was so incredibly powerful. Naruto's hidden potential attracted even Kakashi-sensei to his side. Naruto never divulged more information than was required. She was still unsure of how her battle with Orochimaru had led her to the tower. Before she was knocked out, all she could recall was whispering Naruto's name. She believed she was going to pass away. Pass away at the age of 13 from a pointless test that she had no desire to take in the first place. She only did it for Sasuke, and he didn't seem to mind. Why was a rank so crucial that it required the sacrifice of their lives? She desired strength. She must be. Until she discovered what was so wonderful about being a shinobi. Anyway, she had to keep going until she understood why she wanted to be a shinobi. Even if it meant battling the one person she could consider a friend, Ino. Her mind drifted back to their time together. The power of Ino and her capacity to repel bullies. Ino was always so powerful. Like Naruto, almost. In contrast to Naruto, who was enigmatic, Ino was open and honest. Transparent enough for Ino's love to be evident in everything she did. For example, shielding her from the other children and tying flowers in her hair. Sakura leaned in silent despair against a wall. When had she lost such a valued friend and grown so stupid? She would now need to battle her in order to turn into a chunin. Was rank really that crucial? Was it worthwhile? Her eyes began to well up with tears. A soft finger removed them. She gave a startled blink. She believed she was alone in this place. Who? Sakura. He was Naruto. Ignoring his start of surprise, she threw her arms around his waist and started crying fervently. Shish. He patted her back affectionately while whispering a calming message. Sakura would have laughed at Naruto's awkwardness if she hadn't been crying uncontrollably. Was this his first time holding a woman? Is training too hard? She shook her head and pressed her face against his chest. For once, I want to be held and protected. She was exhausted. She had grown weary of wishing she had Sasuke and of constantly falling behind. Then, what's wrong? She interrupted, then went on. I don't want to fight her tomorrow. After softening in comprehension, his eyes appeared aloof, as though he was recalling a memory from the past. Softly, sometimes, he started. He scratched the back of his head sheepishly and said, "Sometimes, by fighting, you show you care. Besides, it's not a real fight. It's just a formal battle to test both your skills. You can see how strong each of you have gotten." Sakura grinned nervously against Naruto's strange garments. "So, I'm training to show her how strong I've become. Is that what you are doing?" He tensed up a little, then relaxed, his face drowsy and preoccupied. "Maybe. Besides, only when you are strong can you protect the ones precious to you." Notwithstanding Naruto's unease, she embraced him more tightly. He looked so isolated. She was curious about his background and what had given him such a complex personality. It must have been a tough life for him. He shifted a little, and Sakura didn't want to give up Naruto's comforting strength. She cried some more and whispered, "Just please, let me stay like this for a little bit," in a broken voice. "Let me cry until I feel stronger, at the very least." He reluctantly wrapped his arms around her and kept giving her a gentle pat in return. "Don't worry, you'll become strong," she sobbed even more, a little taken aback by his kindness. Standing behind him in the dusty, dark hallway leading to the main arena, Naruto uttered the words, "Gaara of the Sand," with a chilly demeanor. Naruto could only infer from the other boy's aura that Gaara's killing intent was greater than his own. Unlike the other boy, he was never able to kill for fun. Gaara's posture exuded a sense of menace, and Naruto briefly questioned whether Gaara could be saved. As Gaara slowly turned to face him, he pushed aside his pessimistic thoughts and fixed a cool, calculating expression on his face. He was about the height of a boy named Gaara of the Sand. He was wiry and had gorgeous red hair cut close to his head. His mouth was set in a sullen line, and dark lines encircled his emerald eyes. Naruto saw the agonizing loneliness that was hardly perceptible when he looked past the hostile stance. The defensive response was, "What do you want?" Naruto would have been trembling with terror if he had been someone else. Ruthless. Naruto said, "I have a favor to ask of you." Despite this, it was more of a demand than a request. Gaara's eyes grew piercing and shrewd. "A favor?" he asked with a mocking snort. "Who are you to ask me for a favor?" "That all depends on you," was Naruto's cryptic response. In response to Gaara's threat, his cerulean eyes gleamed with power. "I refuse." With a menacing grin, Naruto whispered Gaara's demon's name, Shukaku. Gaara visibly stiffened. Gaara took a menacing step in his direction, and waves of anger rolled off. In response, a puzzled Naruto stepped forward. Gaara resembled a disobedient child. The boy and the demon were clearly two different things. Biting at his dark cloak, sand started to swirl at his feet. Naruto kept grinning as he approached Gaara methodically and slowly. Naruto raised his eyebrows sardonically as the sand grew more concentrated. It balled into a fist and charged at him. Dispersing the sand against the wall, Naruto deflected the attack with ease. Naruto said, "Why do you kill so freely, Gaara of the Sand?" in a cool, patronizing tone. "The purpose of my existence is to kill. I won't let anything interfere with that." Gaara's eyes widened as Naruto continued to casually deflect his sand attacks, but Naruto kept eye contact and smiled in satisfaction. Naruto said, "You wonder how it is possible. You wonder why the sand isn't hurting me," as he approached Gaara and stood beside him, gazing into his eyes to demonstrate his power. Gaara started to shake. Uncertainty obscured his vision, and his eyes widened in terror. Repeating the mantra that had kept him alive to this day, Gaara said, "I will kill only to please myself." "You can't do anything about that," in an unsteady and uneasy voice. "Can't I?" Gaara cried out, "Die," as a wall of sand whirled around him. Before he could simply blast it away with his chakra, Naruto allowed the sand to enclose his body. "I wanted to be kind," he whispered in Gaara's ear, "but you leave me no choice. If you spare Sasuke's life, I will do nothing. But if you move to kill him, I will release Shukaku and ensure that your lonely self will never emerge in your body again because I can control him, unlike you." He walked past him, regretting leaving Gaara in such disbelief. He shrugged as his heart began to soften. Technically, his mission was over. But there was a tiny part of him that wished to save Gaara from himself. "Okay. Itachi ni. Chan probably wouldn't mind if I continued to interfere. I wonder if he's even eating, now that I think about it." He walked out into the arena, pushing his worry to the back of his mind. Hyuga Neji hoped the battle would be interesting. It would be a waste of his time otherwise. Hyuga Neji had always believed that fate had befallen him. Otherwise, he couldn't understand why he had to serve a useless main family and why his father had to die. All he could do was complain and accept that life had dealt him a bad hand. Since the Hyuga were gifted, He genuinely believed that he ought to have been the main family. Instead of the two pitiful girls who were the heirs to the Hyuga, he ought to be. But it was not to be, and he channeled his resentment and frustration into his training. He would be free of the Hyuga clan one day. He hoped to be, anyway. His life was a tragedy, and there didn't seem to be any other way out of it. When he was at his best, he could not fathom being ruled by two women. But that was his fate, his destiny. It was all meant to be, was it not? He was reminded of his academy days by the boy across from him. Naruto Uzumaki. He had passed with flying colors, just like the boy who had failed the year before. How someone younger than him was admitted to the academy still baffled him. The exam was technically only open to students who were 12 years of age or older. Neji dismissed Naruto as one of those exceptional cases. Perhaps Naruto needed the extra years because he was so foolish. However, why would Naruto be permitted to sit for the final exam at 10 years old? When Naruto had failed, Neji had not been shocked. It was expected, and maybe a little bit of fate. The disappearance had been unexpected. When he graduated, he had assumed Naruto would join his team. In particular, Naruto had been the last to die. The disappearance had been followed by a flurry of activity. For one, academy classes had been quieter, almost to the extent of unnecessary repetition. Whatever that meant at the time, there were no teachers yelling bloody murder to the fox boy as they ran down the hallways. His last year at the academy passed in a silent stupor, and the halls were silent. The disappearance's subject was now in front of him. Naruto Uzumaki. Last in death, but clearly not anymore. Naruto had a distinct mannerism. Neji was also suspicious of this dubious figure. A cool, serious expression replaced the once foolish, looking grin. Naruto's body was concealed from view by a softly fluttering black cloak that replaced the dazzlingly orange jumpsuit. His eyes were striking, and his blonde hair hung loosely over the forehead protector. They were blue with a red that was incandescent. To put it another way, his eyes were even more unsettling than his own white, blank pupils. In any case, who had eyes like that? They nearly immobilized him because they were colder than he was. What had happened to the frenzied, boisterous brat that made him so threatening? Neji gazed at Naruto intently while shaking his head to get his thoughts straight. He had to prevail in this conflict. In order to go on higher class missions and break away from the Hyuga family, he had to become a Chunin. It would do him no good to think unsettling thoughts. Neji looked to the proctor, anticipating his announcement of the start of the fight. This would go to him. He was forced to. The proctor raised his hand languidly, as though the act itself dissuaded him from being a convenience fanatic. Hyuga Neji versus Uzumaki Naruto, he said. Start. Neji muttered, Byakugan, while surveying the battlefield. Naruto was, if anything, swift. He dodged a shower of shuriken by darting to the left while straining his eyes. Shish. He's so fast, Neji thought as he fought to avoid the incoming kick. At what point did he join me? I have to get the Kaden going. Kaden. He heard the satisfying crunch of contact as he spun to deflect the kick, segmenting his vision to prevent vertigo. That was definitely not what Naruto expected. When he saw Naruto take off and land 10 meters away with a thud, he grinned. Neji assertively stated, HMPH. You're still weak as ever, Uzumaki Naruto, while assuming a fighting stance. The Hyugas cannot be beaten. Naruto turned to him and appeared to struggle to his feet. Neji's eyes went wide with surprise. He was completely free of scratches. I had no doubt that Naruto struck my Kaden. As he removed his cloak to reveal a loose, fitting black jumpsuit, Naruto said coolly, I suppose I won't be needing this. The weight of the cloak caused it to fall hard to the ground, leaving an imprint. Shish. It was a dull battle. In order to prevent his opponent from starting his Kaden, Naruto ran slowly around Neji, carefully kicking and jabbing at the weak points of Neji's Byakugan. As he continued his attack, Naruto appeared to the crowd as a dark blur wearing a yellow top. As Neji fell to the ground, Naruto thought, I don't think I need to use any specialized attacks. Neji coughed up blood and asked feebly, how come you are so strong? He brushed the blood away with his hand. With a sly smile, Naruto lifted his arms into an attack position. Does it really matter? Neji scowled at Naruto's casual reply. He saw the anger flash across his opponent's face, and his smile grew. He might be a challenge now. I can't condone fighting against someone so carefree, Neji said, stumbling to his feet. I will defeat someone who has had an easy life like you. Or perhaps it's not that difficult. Naruto let out a moan. I will beat you because I suffered, was the angst-filled conversation he had been avoiding. Every opponent he encountered seemed to enjoy droning on about their own wretched lives, prolonging a conflict that could be resolved in a matter of seconds. Perhaps I ought to have simply knocked him unconscious at the beginning of the fight. It seems that you have had the easier life, Hyuga Neji. Now, can we stop talking and finish this battle? I'm getting hungry. With blind rage, Neji lunged at him. Naruto skillfully sidestepped the blow and caught the next punch that came his way. Fire. Hyugas are more effective at close combat. Naruto gathered his chakra to push Neji away as soon as possible because he sensed that Neji was going to use a special move. Ya! Neji exclaimed while quickly performing a series of seals. 4, 8, 16, 30.2, 60. 4 points. Feeling the chakra leave his body, Naruto grimaced. Thus, that is the specialty of Hyuga. Fortunately, sealing my chakra is impossible. Neji assertively said, I sealed all your tenketsus. You won't be able to access chakra anymore, with her arms outstretched. Dead. Last. You have no background, nothing to commend you. I don't need my Byakugan to tell me that you will lose today. It is your destiny. Naruto chuckled quietly, taking pleasure in Neji's shocked expression. Destiny? I make my own destiny, thank you very much, coolly replied Naruto. Before glaring at Naruto, Neji cast a pointed glance at the onlookers and said, it's not possible. Destiny is fixed and yours is to lose, whereas mine is to serve the main family. Will you shut up, you destiny freak? It doesn't really determine anything. Yes, it does, Neji brashly denied. My father was the younger brother of twins, and because of this he was placed in the branch family. Just as it was his destiny to be born second, cursed to die to protect the main family, so too was my destiny to be born into the branch family, cursed to serve the weaker offspring of the main. Destiny is not something the likes of a commoner such as yourself is capable of changing. Your destiny is to lose to me. Curse fate for being born common. His head was scratched by Naruto. Sure. You are beneath the dust on my shoes because you are so carefree. Although I am from the branch family, I will defeat you because that is all that you are. Branch family, main family, it doesn't matter to me. You bastard. You don't know anything. Branch family members are inflicted with a seal that only the main family members can initiate. Seals? Fun. I dispelled a few of those. Seals are nothing, Naruto remarked nonchalantly while gesturing with his hands. You have never had a seal placed upon you, what would you know? I know more than you think, you pathetic whiner, Naruto said, shifting his position and lowering his voice dangerously. Enough talk. I will end your pitiful existence, Neji said, running in Naruto's direction. Naruto grinned and swiftly executed a series of jutsus that were barely visible to the average Junin eye. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The battleground became crowded as 100 copies appeared in the arena. Impossible, Neji stammered. I sealed your tenketsus. You shouldn't be able to use chakra, it doesn't matter. Kaden. When the Bunshins hit the defensive whirl, half of them poofed away. Naruto grinned with delight. This was something that looked like a battle at last. 40 more of his Bunshins vanished at his hands. He whispered a counter jutsu and appeared beside the whirl. Rasengan. As the chakra ball made contact with the Kaden, the spin came to a halt. Naruto pushed the ball into Neji's shoulder while carefully managing its force. It would be impolite to kill another leaf shinobi, after all. Neji landed painfully on his back after flying into the air. How? As an afterthought, Naruto added, and believing that it is. Makes you weak. Naruto approached the vanquished Neji and responded, because destiny isn't fixed. Lazily, the proctor declared, Uzumaki Naruto is the winner. Naruto laughed merrily as the stadium erupted in cheers. This sense of popularity has the potential to become addictive. Unnoticeably, his eyes narrowed as he considered the upcoming conflict. Sasuke versus Gaara. All he could do was hope Gaara would follow his counsel. He would have to kill him otherwise. The Chunin examination's high point was the subsequent battle. A well-known bloodline versus a master sand demon is Uchiha Sasuke versus Gaara of the Sand. Shiranui Genma hoped that there would be no death in this battle. Due to the fact that both of the competitors were highly valued shinobi, that outcome would cause conflict between the two villages. Genma thought absently, Che. An intense desire for blood swirled around them both. Their goal is to murder one another. Genma cursed being chosen to serve as a proctor. The Junin exam was usually more engaging than the Chunin exam. Furthermore, all of the candidates for this particular exam were young brats, the majority of whom have most likely never killed anyone in their brief lives. It was clear that the Uzumaki Naruto kid would prevail, even though the first battle had been at all interesting. His eyes had a depth that no typical 13-year-old would possess, and experience coiled itself around him. Additionally, Genma was able to unwind and observe the birds as they gracefully soared through the skies because the child appeared to be smart enough to avoid killing his opponent. He remained irritated that the Sandaime had asked him to serve as a proctor and had given the battle less of his full attention. He had returned from a particularly dull A-class mission and been called into the Hokage's office. The mission had been successful, and Genma was looking forward to going to the hot springs to unwind and sip sake when he received a nasty little summons at his door. He went to report to the Hokage as required. The Anbu manning the Hokage tower welcomed him and bowed in formal acknowledgement of the Hokage. Straight to the point, the Hokage said. The Sandaime regally commanded, "Shiranui Genma. You are hereby selected to be the proctor for the main Chunin examination matches." Lazily, he drew lead, "Hokage. Sama, I am not qualified for such an exalted duty," in an attempt to persuade his superior. He was fine with watching the test from the stands, but he didn't want to be the one standing among all the jutsus and dirt, which would probably be enough to fly everywhere. "Genma, you are the only Junin available. The other Junins have their subordinates participating in the exam. Besides," the Hokage went on, "there may be an attack. You'd be able to protect the children." "Che," the Hokage said, "I leave them in your hands," and brushed him aside. It had already been a frustrating evening because he didn't have the power to say no, and now he had to put up with two immature brats who didn't realize that death was inevitable. He looked languidly at the two famous brats, resigned. Uchiha Sasuke was dressed simply in a blue shirt with the Uchiha fan logo printed on the back. His well-trained muscles were covered by black shorts, and he appeared tense and prepared to act. The brat's dark navy blue hair, which was protected by a forehead protector, was a genetic feature of the Uchihas. His posture exuded contempt, and Genma found it difficult to contain her sighing since she knew that, barring the Sand Brat's extraordinary talent, this battle would likely last longer than the last. It would be accurate to characterize the Uchiha brat as arrogant, immature, and short-sighted. Sensing that he would have to get involved in this fight, Genma continued to watch the Sand Brat. The boy's forehead had an unsettling tattoo of the kanji word, love, and the wound appeared to be constantly irritated because it was still so red. Exhausted emerald eyes were framed by dark lines, and Uchiha Sasuke was the target of a murderous intent. This child appeared to be well versed in death, and based on the ferocity of the brat's murderous intent, he would not think twice about taking a life, complicating his own task. Genma couldn't help but sigh this time. As languidly as he could, Genma raised his right arm and said, "Uchiha Sasuke versus Gaara of the Sand, battle start." Unfortunately, this battle had to be watched. The society had always shunned Gaara. He was unable to remember ever feeling alone. He heard all of the insults, orphan, monster, dirty, stupid, and took them in silence because he knew there was nothing he could do to change their minds. He was instructed by Yashimaru to love himself alone, and ensuring everyone's death was the only way to accomplish that. It was unfortunate that love was such an erratic feeling. Yashimaru, the one person he believed recognized him, did not think twice about trying to murder him. Who was he to think twice about killing people? Besides, killing people was so simple, particularly because they were so frail. To be honest, they deserved to die if they were that miserable. He had been unloved. Other than Shukaku, no one had recognized him. Nobody checked to see if he slept or ate. He couldn't sleep because that jerk of a demon would slowly but surely eat him up. Because it served his interests, he obeyed the man who identified himself as his father. After all, he had nothing else to do. And as long as he had the chance to kill something, he was content. Until that individual spoke to him, Gaara wasn't asked for favors. It simply wasn't finished. However, that blonde leaf shinobi approached him casually and gave him the order to spare Uchiha Sasuke's life. He had never experienced genuine fear before. He would be easily stopped by that person, who was far stronger than him. He was therefore conflicted for the first time in his life. The idea of being trapped in his own body while Shukaku danced freely was terrifying, even though he wanted to kill Uchiha Sasuke. He contemplated whether or not to kill his opponent while glaring at him. To her surprise, Gaara had no desire to die. Death wasn't for him, it was for the people he killed. However, bloodlust would unavoidably take over his body and he would lose self-control if he fought Uchiha Sasuke. According to the rules, there was going to be another battle, something like the Sand Village attacking the unwary Leaf. But that didn't matter to him at all, particularly after that obnoxious exchange with the blonde. His new tormentor's heavy, piercing gaze was felt by him. He turned his head and gazed blankly back at the first battle winner. Gaara was wise enough to yield to the stronger existence as those eyes narrowed in warning. Gaara turned to glare back at Uchiha Sasuke, deciding that he could prove his existence later, when he was powerful enough to overcome the person who possessed that awful aura of death that made even him tremble. Uchiha Sasuke versus Gaara of the Sand, battle start. He turned to face the proctor and said calmly, "I resign. I'm not interested in fighting." There was silence among the crowd before the invasion of the leaf broke out, causing chaos. Gaara returned to the hall where the contestants stayed, glaring at the sunny blonde's smile. He suspected that the boy would readily kill him in retaliation if he killed. It was the first time in Gaara's life that he complained like the teenager he was. Despite the glare directed at him, Naruto's smile was bright as he turned to face Gaara. It was evident that Gaara could be healed because she had followed his advice. Naruto wished that Gaara would eventually find that special someone to keep safe. But in the meantime, he would defeat the invaders. Except for Itachi, he wouldn't let anyone tamper with the Leaf Village. He smirked malevolently as he jumped into the fray, letting his murderous intent finally surface after cracking his knuckles in preparation for the fight. Now, nothing could stop him. A calm, cool, seductive voice said, "Ah, I see that you have finally returned. What is the status of your report, Itachi?" With an unreadable expression, Itachi replied, "Everything is going according to plan. He will follow me blindly." The other smirked as a gentle chink of ice settled in the wineglass. Itachi was a trustworthy young man. Because of his resourcefulness, the young genius cut what would have taken 5 years into one. "Bring him to me. After all, we do not wish for him to die in the battle now, after all the trouble you went through to retrieve him." As Itachi's eyes softened and then responded, he squinted in conjecture. It was not that much trouble at all. He is an eager pupil. I was able to accomplish much because he was emotionally needy due to the ill treatment he received from the village. Clearly, the boy had turned into Itachi's weakness. He shrugged lightly after silently considering how to weed out the weakness. Even the frigid Itachi appeared to be susceptible to the need for company. Seeing all of this come to life would be interesting. He finally said, "As long as he does not interfere with your assignments," following a pause. "He will not, I will make sure of that," Itachi said, bowing his head and kneeling in front of him. He stared steadily at Itachi's bowed head while the small throne room was silent. Itachi's newfound humility intrigued him, and he was perplexed by the implicit plea to save the boy's life. After a few minutes of silence, he finally answered, "Retrieve him. I wish to see this child who has softened you." Itachi tensed, then raised his gaze. Itachi's crimson eyes flashed with uncertainty, and he would have missed it if he hadn't had superior vision. When Itachi complied, there was a slight pause in his voice, "Hi." Coolly, he leaned against the armrest of the opulent throne and counseled, "Do not let your emotions cloud your thoughts." As he added more elements to his ambition, he furrowed his brow. Itachi would take a long time to return, so he would have to give his accomplice, or rather, his subordinate, a number of missions to finish while he was away. "Your little brother is still alive, isn't he?" Itachi replied, his eyes flashing indifferently, "I have no use for that weakling. I have heard he has awakened his Sharingan. Perhaps someday he will be a challenge?" he added in a humorous tone. With a scornful reply, "The boy has more potential than my little brother. Sasuke is too pitiful to kill." Itachi rose gracefully to his feet. With a voice as smooth as honey and as sharp as a fine katana, he asked, "Isn't it interesting to note that you are both of the same blood?" The clan was a bitter disappointment. "They were weak when I challenged them," Itachi said objectively. "My foolish little brother is the same." "Then kill him nonetheless. End his pitiful existence." Itachi angrily replied, "I will not," his eyes glimmering wildly as he glared at him. His astute response, "You are protecting him," was the quiet before a terrible storm. Itachi gave him a steady glance before averting his gaze. "Perhaps I am. He may be of use yet, although he is pitiful." The clenched fists, carefully hidden in Itachi's overpowering cloak, made him observe that Itachi was agitated. "Then you will reveal yourself to him. Break his world. Have the boy destroy your little brother's faith in people and his teammates. Have the boy kill one that your little brother considers precious. He will be an avenger and I want him mindless." Itachi froze in shock. Mindless? He is weak and will bend easily for strength and power. Why go to the extreme of having him kill a teammate? His muscles tensed for action like a reclining panther. He sighed in mock exasperation as he leapt to his feet and paced around Itachi. "It is more fun. Besides, a tool is better when he lacks emotions, right? He will be consumed in hatred and then he will lose his sanity." A broken toy is so much more entertaining than a lively rebellious one, is that what it is? Betrayal is not possible when the mind is too turbulent. I am beginning to think I am too soft on you, Itachi. His voice was heavy with leashed menace, and he paused in front of Itachi, hands clasped to his back, and looked down at the younger man. He then smiled winsomely at Itachi's discomfort. I know you will not betray me, Itachi. You have too much at stake after all, including the boy. Itachi looked at him suspiciously and did not respond. Tisk tisk, so tense. Relax, I need the boy alive and in control of the demon inside him to fulfill my plans. Retrieve the boy, show yourself to your little brother, and kill Orochimaru. He is a nuisance. That is all, you are dismissed, he abruptly said while reclining on the throne. As Itachi teleported out, there was a gentle ripple in the pool of water where the throne lay. He looked at his crystal blue eyes and his spiky blonde headed reflection with despair. He sighed and whispered to no one in particular, it's been over 13 years. I wonder if the boy can forgive me. His face appeared youthful for his age. As he sliced through another sand shinobi, Naruto let out a harsh cry. His eyes briefly flashed with concern before bloodlust took their place, and he had long since lost sight of his comrades. He would not die until he saw Itachi again because hesitation would mean death. Blood from other people was all over his hair, and some of it trickled down his cheeks. Even though he was hungry and his black cloak was in ruins, he hurriedly cut and avoided the enemy's attacks, seemingly in the face of an endless stream of shinobi. He saw that the majority of the invaders were dead, and silence fell after a short while. He shook his head to get rid of the bloodlust as bodies were strewn all over the arena. He sighed as he felt his skin sizzle as the superficial wounds healed on their own. It had not been a satisfying battle. He walked lightly over bodies in search of his teammates, swallowing his disappointment because all of his opponents had been weak. He waved his hands and exclaimed, "Oi!" Upon seeing his pink-headed teammate, she brightened as she looked up in surprise. Her voice faltered as she finished, "Naruto, I'm glad that you're all right. Do you know any healing jutsus? Sasuke-kun is hurt." She pointed to the body beside which she was kneeling. Sasuke was not conscious. As he knelt down to absently examine Sasuke's wounds, Naruto whispered, "How bad is it?" "I don't know. I saw him fall and I was so scared," she sobbed, clutching Naruto's ripped clothes. While he looked for the cause of his other teammates' injuries, Naruto gave her a gentle pat on the head. He felt for Sasuke's pulse and was somewhat relieved to find it steady. He said. No other wounds were visible. His vitals weren't hit, so he should be all right. He probably exhausted his chakra. Her eyes clouded with worry, she asked plaintively into his cloak, "Is there anything we can do to wake him up?" With a playful nod, Naruto collected chakra in his hand and pressed it into Sasuke's chest. Sasuke's dark eyes opened blearily as his body shook slightly. Sasuke, struggling to sit up, said in a raspy voice, "Where?" Naruto reprimanded Sasuke, "Shay. You fell asleep," as he helped him stand up. "You should be more careful with chakra control, some straggler may kill you." "Shut up," his other teammate snapped back, yanking his hand violently away. "So ungrateful." Sasuke angrily exclaimed, I will kill you someday," before he staggered in weakness. Sakura stepped in between them and yelled, "Sasuke-kun. Naruto-kun, please stop. You shouldn't be fighting one another. Please. All of us almost died." "HMPH, said Sasuke, turning his head coolly to look somewhere else. Grinning, Naruto turned to leave. "I need to find Kakashi-sensei for more missions. Talk to you guys later." Before pausing when he heard his name, he ran off. Naruto. It was the whisper of someone he wanted to keep safe, soft and alluring. He looked around frantically, trying to find the source. Itachi was present. This indicated that the mission was finished, and perhaps the two of them would go around the world once more, where they wouldn't be bound by a particular people or village. He used his chakra, finding senses to locate Itachi as he jogged lightly around the perimeter. Behind a tree on the edge of the arena, he could make out the outline of a familiar black cloak, flowing elegantly in the teaser wind. He started to run, laughing uncontrollably as he hurried to locate Itachi. Naruto exclaimed with delight, "Itachi ni-chan," after his eyes confirmed that it was, in fact, Itachi. Itachi rubbed his head and then withdrew his hand. His eyes were a little far away. Naruto scowled bitterly. Something had gone wrong. However, what? Where is Sasuke? Despite his confusion, he answered instinctively, "He's over there with Sakura." "Let's go." After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Itachi ni-chan. What's going on?" Itachi gently drew Naruto's head closer and whispered the rest of the mission, saying, "Naruto, we have a mission you may not like." His eyes grew wide with shock and surprise. This one would be challenging, particularly because he had grown so attached. He nodded his head slowly after steadily looking into Itachi's eyes. "You know that I am loyal to you and you only." Instead of happily rejoining his teammates, he walked with Itachi as though they were marching to a funeral knoll. He walked with deliberate, heavy steps. His monotonous, albeit tranquil, life in Konoha was definitely over, and it was getting more difficult to follow his steps as his happy teammate appeared, getting closer and closer. Sakura smiled at him before asking herself who Naruto was with. Sasuke became enraged and hateful. "Oi!" said Naruto once more. "I'm back." Unwillingly stepping forward, Sasuke let out a hateful "Uchiha, Itachi." Naruto stepped in front of Itachi with a savage smile. His voice was as cold as ice. "You want to get to him, you have to go through me," he said dryly. Sasuke's tone was disbelieving and incredulous as he said, "You're allied with Itachi?" His eyes widened before narrowing in bitterness. Examining his fingertips, Naruto said nonchalantly, "So what if I am?" before turning to face Sasuke. With his eyes turning red and spinning like pinwheels, Sasuke screamed, "You bastard, he killed my clan. My parents, and you're with someone who is as vile as that? I really will kill you." "So what? He's infinitely stronger than you will ever be, Sasuke-kun." As the electricity danced wildly, Sasuke roared, "Die!" and charged toward Naruto, Chidori tweeting. With a sly smile in return, Naruto moved more quickly than Sasuke's Sharingan could see and took hold of Sasuke's wrist in a painful grip. "Do you want to know something, Sasuke? You were never a challenge. Not even close to being my rival. Because Itachi chose me to train and not you. Poor pitiful Sasuke." As Naruto tightened his grip on Sasuke's wrist, his eyes widened in horror. Naruto broke Sasuke's wrists with a painful snap, and he withdrew while observing Sasuke curl up in pain. Naruto said politely, "Sakura-chan, Gomen," as he stepped in front of her too quickly for her to notice. She shook in terror as she questioned, "Naruto-kun? Wah?" This was a side she had never really seen up close. "Sayonara. You didn't kill her," Itachi said plainly, his blank expression belying his annoyance. Naruto's voice was muted as he said, "I was interrupted ni-san," feeling guilty for his hesitation and for failing Itachi ni-san. Itachi just stared at him, the dark navy blue of his eyes flickering red and then back again. After they had a conversation with Naruto, he would receive his punishment. Before denouncing his younger brother for being such a feeble avenger, his eyes momentarily softened at the prone form of Sasuke. As he had predicted, Konoha had actually gotten weak, and soon. "Naruto," Itachi said with his elegantly indifferent tone, "you are disappointing." Naruto's normally brilliant cerulean eyes flashed with hurt. There was a problem with his ni-san. He wasn't usually this cruel. However, he suppressed the thought and the sense of betrayal. After all, he failed, so he deserved it. After all, the directives were very clear. Kill your female teammate and get Sasuke back. Naruto could only do 2 of the 7 simple words. He lowered his head in embarrassment. His conscience was tormented by guilt because this was the first mission he failed to finish. What would happen to Itachi ni-san as a result of his failure? Suppose Itachi ni-san passed away. He recognized the tightness in his throat as worry. Now what would happen? "Gomen Nasai," Naruto said apologetic in a whisper. "I will not fail again, I will not." Coldly, "You failed this time," Itachi said. Naruto flinched. He then awaited more of this peculiar censure from Itachi. "That is what matters, and as a shinobi, you blackened my name in front of my master. That is unforgivable." Weakly, Naruto collapsed to his knees. Who was Itachi ni-san serving? Naruto cleared his mind and realized that the unstoppable individual who had saved him from loneliness had also saved him from himself. As long as Itachi ni-san was present, that was irrelevant. Itachi stood up and beckoned him to follow him. "Come, it is time for you to meet him," she said. You will serve him too and you will not fail me again. Naruto got up on his own. What about Sasuke? Itachi's eyes glowed with impatience. Carry him. Hi, he answered softly. This individual was dreadful. After carrying Sasuke over his shoulder, Naruto followed Itachi through a dim cavern, wondering what had happened to transform his older brother into this icy, uncaring man in the brief time they had been apart. Hesitantly, Naruto followed Itachi, and he remained silent as they passed through strange double doors. Naruto was only able to concentrate on his adopted brother, despite the fact that the golden gilded doors were out of place in a dark cavern. As he reflected guiltily on what had caused him to hesitate, he brushed aside the room's beauty. A part of him wished to relive that moment in order to avoid failing because the fact that he developed attachments and failed astounded him. He continued to think deeply despite the beauty of the artistically shaped columns that lined the walkway, the silver vines that twinkled around them, and the sound of the water trickling in the cavernous hall. Naruto paused in awe as Itachi stopped in front of a marble throne that was exquisitely carved to resemble ocean waves, with 4 magnificent mermen holding shimmering tridents for the backrest and frothing horses for the armrest. Then he was brought to reality by Itachi's lowly kneel. Naruto trembled and imitated the gesture of the master Itachi ni-san, not daring to glance at the person lounging on the throne. Itachi-kun was said in a lighthearted, almost playful voice. The voice was smooth, sophisticated, and had a calming tenor with a hint of warmth. Naruto shuddered. I heard from a messenger that your little toy failed. How disappointing, the voice said, growing gloomy. I apologize, Yondaime. Sama, Itachi said politely. Naruto shuddered and winced in his mind. Yondaime? Is this individual mine? It's probably just another individual who was the fourth of something. For his ni-san to be so submissive and modest, this man must be incredibly strong. He had never seen that aspect of Itachi ni-san before. The master whispered, but at least the boy didn't forget to bring your little brother. The voice became sharper and almost cruelly smooth, and Naruto froze. Things will be interesting, will it not, Naruto? Chan? He asked. Itachi-kun, it must be very disheartening to see your brother fail, isn't it? What will we do with little Sasuke-kun? He is useless because he is so weak. I'm disappointed in him as well. Itachi said, Hi, Yondaime. Sama, in a quiet, controlled voice that left Naruto speechless and a little afraid, and he was confused by this odd interview. Why don't you come here, Naruto? Chan? The Yondaime demanded silkily. Itachi shifted slightly and said, Yondaime, Sama. As the room's temperature dropped to a wintry level, Itachi became quiet, and Naruto reluctantly looked at him, noticing some of the old care and concern. Naruto then turned to look at the man on the throne, and was a little taken aback by the man's spiky blonde hair that hung just past his shoulder. His eyes were burning scarlet, and his body was toned with leashed power. Naruto approached this strange, powerful force with caution, and when he was in front of the throne, within the Yondaime's arm's reach, he stood, unsure of himself, and stopped breathing when silk. Encased fingers traced his cheek, a gentle gesture that resembled a parent caressing a sleeping child, and he resisted the urge to learn into the touch. The fingers traced his cheeks, nose, and forehead before finally resting on his forehead. The Yondaime softly murmured, You are a lovely curse, Naruto. Chan. You look so much like me. Behind him, Naruto felt Itachi tense. Are you aware of your identity? Who are you? He relentlessly asked. What a beautiful son you would have been to him, he ended with a snarl of hatred and disgust. The hand on his forehead twisted to hold his head in a vice. Like grip. Naruto started sweating. It wasn't quite painful, but the tension, the fear rising in his gut, choked him. Answer me, with a painfully tighter grip on Naruto's head, Arashi demanded. Sound would not pass through Naruto's dry, raspy throat, even though he knew he had to respond. The man's desire to kill him overcame him, and he struggled to hold back a dry cry of terror. This man, would kill him. Naruto knew and was afraid of the man's hatred and loathing for him. Poor little child, the Yondaime said with a sly laugh. You have no knowledge. In fact, it's pretty beautiful. Human foolishness. The icy sound of his laughter reverberated through the hall, and Naruto shuddered in agony as he felt perspiration trickle down his right cheek, possibly blood. I'll tell you a secret, he said. Did you know that I gave Itachi-kun the order to seek you out? Did you know that your relationship and your beloved Oni-san are nothing more than a tool for me? Babe's precious blindness, the irony, the romance, my amazing tale. The Yondaime finished with a flourish, standing with fluid grace and by doing so, lifted Naruto 3 inches above the ground. He brought Naruto's ear closer to his lips to whisper, "Your life has been a dream. A silly wishful thinking." And poof, it's over. It is over, he whispered again, and threw Naruto across the room, where his body slammed against one of the pillars and the air whooshed out of his lungs. He coughed up blood and looked weakly up at Itachi. He used his other hand to grasp Naruto's neck, and Naruto hung limply, shocked, hurt, confused, and his body trembled with fear. It couldn't be true. Life couldn't be this cruel, and Itachi. Ni-san. Wouldn't be. Itachi was kneeling in front of Arashi, his eyes closed, stone-faced, and unconcerned by Naruto's agonized breathing. He used the pillar to slowly and carefully stand up. Itachi Ni-san. You misled me, is it true, you? With his right arm resting on the pillar, Naruto asked in a broken voice. Itachi remained silent. Itachi, is it true? Naruto managed to yell. It is true, Itachi said, nodding without glancing at him. You were on a mission. So everything, all those things we did together, do you mean that all this time Itachi Ni-san? You lied to me? Naruto stifled a sob. Was it all a lie? Yes, Itachi replied. I respected him more than any other Hokage. Additionally, he is your dad and has never passed away. Incredulous, Naruto gazed at him. My father? What kind of father does this to his child? Naruto reiterated. As beautiful as this heart moment is, I get tired of your simplicity, the Yondaime said, breaking off their conversation with a laugh. Both of you are idiots, and it makes me happy to see how hurt you are, Naruto. Chan. You have such amazing feelings to feast on. Betrayal, confusion, and loneliness. It'll be over soon. Naruto. Chan, are you unhappy? My amazing son. Naruto said softly, his voice tinged with pain. I don't understand, why are you doing this? If you're my dad. I only took his form because he took mine, the Yondaime replied, dark chakra flaring, and Itachi looked up in horror. The Yondaime's smile had a sinister effect. Oh Itachi-kun, did you not know? If you had really known the Yondaime, it would have been clear. But what would you remember, you were so young. Itachi appeared devastated and shocked at the thought of serving the Kyuubi rather than the man he admired, while Naruto gasped for air. With you kids, I get bored. Show your loyalty, Itachi. With a chilly smile, the Yondaime commanded, kill Naruto and Sasuke. I am still the same man you have been serving for more than 7 years. Are you going to turn on me now? Now, not even Naruto will accept you. Considering how hateful he is, do you think he will ever trust you again? Like a little brother to you? Naruto stared at Itachi in terror as he stood woodenly and drew a kunai. All 3 eyes turned to his slowly waking form as Sasuke coughed weakly. Using the distraction, Naruto rushed toward Sasuke and threw his body over his shoulder. They would kill him too, and Itachi would, so Naruto fled. If Arashi was the Kyuubi, then the Kyuubi had actually been his father, not just a name. He wished Kyuubi was with him. Oto-san. Naruto accelerated as he sensed Itachi's chakra behind him. Normally, Itachi couldn't keep up with him, but Sasuke's weight was causing him to lag. Knowing that Itachi would be ruthless in his pursuit and that there was a good chance that Itachi would kill Arashi even if he were aware that he was the Kyuubi, Naruto hurried out of the cavern. Naruto fled, because he no longer had anyone to rely on.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.